college football. We'll get you set for it. McElroy having some flight issues, so maybe he's with us at some point today. Not certain when he'll join. Stanford Steve going to be with us here in about 20 minutes. We'll talk to Jeff Schwartz coming up at 8 o'clock, get his thoughts on Oregon and the Ducks' opportunity to go win a Big Ten championship. It's one of the things that I think is maybe a little frustrating for some people when we talk about championship weekend is the meaning, is what does this mean? How much meaning does it now have? We heard Lashley, if you missed him on our show yesterday, it was fantastic. And he actually dropped on us at one point. When you look at the rankings, why do we go play? Now, he's not saying they don't want to. He's not saying they're not interested in it. But just with what the committee said about all other things not involving teams that are not playing aren't going to change after this weekend, which I think is maybe the most nonsensical statement we've heard from the College Football Playoff Committee, be it 4 teams, 12 teams, whatever that is. I don't understand why you just even take the risk of fast forwarding like that and projecting ahead when you don't have to, because let's be honest, it does have an impact. It does make sense. It does do something to it because those teams, number one, that played those teams, now you could have a conference champion on your schedule. I think that means something. I think there's meaning in that. I think also you look at if there's a bad loss or a blowout, how do you look at that other team differently if they defeated that team or lost to that team? So I didn't think Warren Manuel had to do what he did on Tuesday night, talking about those things weren't going to change, but he did. And so now we'll talk about some of the things that are going to be involved with that. You look at Oregon and Penn State. Are either of those teams going to be knocked out of the college football playoff? Penn State currently sits at 3. I don't think we've had a lot of discussion about where Penn State goes if they were to go to 11-2, but let's be honest, they're in. Oregon, 12-0, they lose, they're in. Texas, we believe they're in, regardless. We don't think that this committee is going to punish Georgia to the extent that they're not in this playoff anymore. So there's 2 conference championship games, the 2 biggest, that if these teams go out and drop it, they're still in. Now, I still think conference championships matter. When I played, it was probably our primary goal, to be perfectly honest with you, because back then it didn't really feel like a national championship or even honestly the ability to play for a national championship was in sight. But you can think about how many things had to come together. I mean, you had to end up against that other team in a certain bowl game, and then it was still might not even be one that was individually yours. Depending on how the votes played out and depending on what other teams were playing in what other games, it potentially then still could be split. So those opportunities weren't on the table. We've heard Lane Kiffin talk in the last couple of weeks about we're not sure we even want to be in the SEC championship game. For me, this still means a lot because let's be real. There's going to be 12 teams that get into the playoff. 12 teams aren't going to win a national championship every year. You get that conference championship, you can hang that banner, you get a conference championship ring. Even if you get blown out in the first round, your season still had some success. And that's something that I think your program can still lean on. You can still talk about, you can utilize in recruiting. You're going to be able to hang that banner and you're going to be able to have that. I mean, think about it from a coaching perspective. You got that on your resume as well. Hey, we won the SEC. But some of these games losing a little bit of luster because we just still think these teams are in the college football playoff and therefore it doesn't quite matter as much. If you need to listen online, jocksfm.com. You can always grab the app in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Also, watch us live on YouTube every morning. Search JOX945, and you can watch us live every morning. You can also go watch it back. If you miss it, they stay up there, and you can check it out each and every day. 800-239-9569, you want to get in. The meaning of Championship Saturday. Now, we know for, let's just say, the ACC championship game. A lot of meaning there because we've had the debate multiple times this week. What happens if SMU goes down to Clemson? Are they out? We all are certain that if Clemson loses to SMU at 9-3, they go to 9-4. They're not going to be in the college football playoff. But as ACC champs, they're in. It's not really debatable. We know that's going to take place. So what is the absolute meaning of some of these games? What does it mean to you? No Alabama, no Auburn in the SEC championship game. Also, the other aspect, I think I'm growing a little bit tired of hearing Texas in their first year in the SEC. What does that mean for the SEC? What does that do to the projection of the Southeastern Conference that a team can come in and win it? Here's the difference between a lot of other times when we've seen expansion. A lot of other times when we've seen expansion, when did we find out about this and when did those teams actually move? Well, let's just think about the last few rounds of expansion. How much leeway, how much of a head start? I think if you're going to make the comparison to the Big Ten or the SEC, I mean, how much head start did Oregon have on the Big Ten? was it almost 3 years?
Felt like it.
I mean, it was right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they found out, and it was like, oh, okay, well, we better start recruiting that way. We have one off season to maybe get ready for that. Texas has had, I believe, 3 recruiting cycles to get ready for this. I've had the conversations with Steve Sarkisian talking about we have to recruit differently at the line of scrimmage. He's coached in this league. He knows what this league's about. Got to find a way to go out there, be more physical. Got to recruit those big bodies. Quote from Steve Sarkisian, "We are a fan of big humans in this program." Sark told me that earlier this year because he knows if you're going to win in this conference, that's what you have to be. And keep in mind, it still wasn't even enough last time around. I mean, this is a team that was bullied by Georgia last time around. This is a team that was punched in the face. This is a team that Georgia, I believe, went to Austin, Texas and said, we have to prove that we're about it and these dudes are not. Like physically, we have to go prove that we're something different that these guys are not. Now, I don't know if Texas wasn't ready for that because we're going to find out round 2 if that was that big of a reality check and that big of a problem, really, you're going to struggle with it again. Now, if it caught you off guard and caught you by surprise and your game plan maybe wasn't tuned into that, then I think you can make some adjustments and the outcome could be a little bit different. And the way that part of the game goes could also be just a little bit different. Will it be? I think to an extent it will be, yes. I think the biggest X factor in this game is Kirby Smart, the motivator. Because you tell me, if you've watched Georgia every game this year, the Georgia defense, specifically the front 7, and then portions of the Georgia offense that you saw against Texas, did you see that every week? How many other weeks during the season did you see that? And if you recall, going back, when we previewed Ole Miss and Georgia on this show, and we sat there and we talked about it, and that game was on November the 9th, so probably the 8th, the 7th of November, and we sat here and we talked about, all right, you're staring down the barrel of a top 10 Ole Miss team and then a top 15 Tennessee team. You still have Georgia Tech and maybe the SEC championship game. We know what Kirby did against Texas and how he got those guys ramped up. We would imagine he did the same thing against Alabama, which may be the greatest offensive start to a game in the history of Alabama football in that one, at least that I've seen in a while. So you couldn't weather that storm. So you have to come back again 4 weeks later and get your guys ramped up to Texas. You go to Austin with everything else that was around it. Who was it? Sting, F1, Eminem, Mardi Gras Parade, whatever else they had there. That year, Carnival, they like the rodeo. Everything was in town.
Some country concert. Right?
Monster trucks were there. Yeah. Just make it up. It was there. Everything that went into that game, you got them ready, and they played lights out. So did you pull the next bullet out of the holster to get ready for that one again at Ole Miss? It didn't feel like it the way you played there. Did you pull it out for Tennessee? Kind of feel like you had to at that point. Were you going to wait for the Ole Miss game, or were you go ahead and use another piece of ammunition? Because I do think there's a part of Kirby that knows, like, he can only dig into that well so many times in a year. But you know he's going to do it for this game because it didn't feel like they did it for Georgia Tech. There were portions of that team that were a little bit flat against Georgia Tech. So do you go out there and you try to get them going with that? Nobody respects you. Everybody's picking against you. I haven't seen one person pick us in this game. I mean, you don't think he's going to be pointing to that line and talking about some of the disrespect? You've already defeated this team. You've already knocked this team off now, and you're 3-point dog. You got an entire desert that doesn't think you can win this game. The entire gambling world thinks you're going to lose this game. So Kirby will get them ramped up. So where does Georgia come in mentally and emotionally? Because if they're about as tweaked up as they were against Texas last time, sometimes they just overpower you. There's not a lot that you can do about it. I was on with Josh Pate last night. He asked me the question. He said, does Texas get hit as hard this time as they did last time? And the issue a lot of times think about how many times we have seen this with Kirby Smart coached Georgia teams and Nick Saban coached Alabama teams in the last, let's just say 10 years. Whether it was a Tennessee team that could throw the ball around or the Mississippi State teams with Dak Prescott. Some of those teams that went on these runs and looked really dangerous, maybe a South Carolina team here and there. Yeah, South Carolina, Ole Miss caught them once or twice. But how many times did those teams show up physically and we thought it was going to be a great game and we thought it was going to be okay, and once they got punched in the face, it was a totally different deal. That's the part of this game that I want to see early on. Because if Georgia punches again and Texas doesn't like it again, it could be a long day for the Longhorns. But if Texas now understands, because I think a lot of times you can watch that film and you can understand what it's like when Dante Hightower, Courtney Upshaw, or somebody comes down and lays one on you, or Chance Warmack works up on a double team. Like, you can get an idea what that feels like. Or Maris Mims comes over and pass pro and gives you a full slab in the ribs. You think you know how that feels, but then you don't really know how it feels until you get it, until you get into that arena. You step into that ring. You step into that cage. And all of a sudden, it's different. So how different was it for Texas? Are they able to overcome that part of it? Because if they are, I think Texas wins this game. But it's literally the main issue that I have going into this game, because there is no qualifier for it. We can't point to statistics. We can't point to what happened, even really in other matchups. What's the next most physical game that we think Texas has played this year? Michigan? A team that has no pulse on offense, especially then. Zero. I know Michigan just beat Ohio State. I get it. I understand that. Texas A&M? And that was one that I feel like they just kind of shifted down to second gear and said, we're good. We don't need to open it up on the interstate. Just set the cruise control and we'll be fine. We'll be okay. Oklahoma's defense, pretty physical, but they don't play the style that we're talking about. They don't play the, we're going to put our hands on you and there's not a lot you can do about it. We're going to come downhill on you and there's not a lot you can do about it. Like, they don't play really that's not like an overpower. Even though the defense is physical, has physicality, it's not an overpowering. It's more of an overwhelming with what you see, how they move, quickness, speed, agility, twitch. That's what scares me more about the Oklahoma defense than it does this Georgia defense, or even portions of the A&M defense. And A&M has a little bit of that offensively. I just wonder with some of the injuries how much of that was taken away by the time Texas played them late in the season. But I guess to ultimately answer that question, how many times have they had to fight that fight this year? They got a lot of cruiserweight fights. How many heavyweight fights has Texas been in this year? Okay, let's just count Michigan as maybe one. I'm going to count Oklahoma as one. Because I think we know where that offense was when you go back to the middle of the season, and it was literally lost in space. Like, had no rocket boosters, no fuel, running low on oxygen.
Just floating.
Just hit the eject, and you float where you float. What was the movie with George Clooney where he just
Gravity.
floats?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no gravity for that offense. It had floated away by that point. Florida heavyweight fight? Yeah. I don't know about that. So maybe 2.5. We'll give you a half for the Michigan defense, not even so much for the offense. And I feel like Texas looked pretty comfortable against that one. So they haven't had to walk this walk very often this year.
And even in the ones that they probably did, they like that one, like they kind of handled, like say Vanderbilt or Arkansas. They probably were somewhat physical, but they were like, well, we know we got this.
Yeah, not like that.
You said, just drop it down second. Yeah, we're fine.
Not like that. So it kind of feels like Georgia walking into this match having lost multiple heavyweight title fights, Texas walking into this match having won multiple intercontinental championships. Or one of the other made-up titles, like the United States champion.
Featherweight.
Just one of the ones that's like, oh, that guy's got a belt? Cool. The what was the one that Mankind had for a while that was all torn up? They kind of made it up, like the Rock and Sock'em champion, the No Rules title, whatever it's called.
Hardcore
champion. Maybe that actually doesn't fit the narrative.
No, it doesn't sound like, no.
Basically, they have Ted DiBiase's belt. They went to the jeweler. They had it made. It was theirs. They won it because they said they did. And I'm not saying Texas thinks that way, but that's kind of where they are right now when you look at the comparisons of what these teams have done. I mean, Georgia got Clemson. They got Bama. And they've been in it with this one. We know that these two teams have played. You got about half of it with the Ole Miss defense. You got it with Tennessee. Tennessee can bring that fight this year. They can be that kind of team. We've seen it multiple times. So I think from that perspective, physically, Georgia comes in tested, ready, and aware. Texas, we'll see. But at least you've done it now, and you know what it is and what it's going to be about. The other major aspect of this, I really do believe, is because I'm just going to tell you, I've gone back and I've watched the Texas A&M game multiple times. And a lot of the conversations that we end up having in our Joe Moore Award conversations about the best offensive line in college football is, does this group win because of their offensive line, or do they win primarily because of other things that happen? And that specific game, I don't think Texas, everyone looks at the rushing numbers for that game. And listen, they were great. Wisner was awesome. But I don't think the majority of it happened because of the Texas offensive line. I just think some of it they were out schemed. I think some of it they were a little bit out coached. And then also, I just think Wisner has a really good feel right now of working that zone scheme, getting the cutbacks going. He had 33 for 185. They were in 47 times for 243. It's not to say that nobody on the offensive line did anything good for the entire game. And Kelvin Banks didn't go the whole game, but he did some good things in that game. Jake Majors did some good things in that game, but it wasn't primarily because of what the offensive line did. And that's actually an aspect of this team that concerns me just a little bit. But the main thing Georgia did last time is they made Texas wrong, primarily in protections, because of how they lined up. How often do you see a corner crash actually get to the quarterback? Now, a lot of teams don't play press man, so their corners aren't even up in a position to blitz, specifically into the boundary. So, by how they aligned, and they got Texas into the protection that they wanted, and then they hit them the other side. Texas had that issue multiple times. There was a lot of the narrative coming out of that game of, oh, the right tackle got owned. He got abused. This and that. Left tackle got owned. I don't think it was as many one-on-one losses as people believe. I think it was a lot more scheme. And when Georgia schemes you up and has those guys to come after you, you got problems. You've got big problems. But if there's not a ton of guys in college football I trust more than Steve Sarkisian to be able to make those adjustments and be able to get that part right and to be able to roll into this game and have a plan that will offset those parts of it. But it's not going to be dink and dunk in the flat to beat this Georgia team. I think you have to work the middle of the field. I think you have to steal the eyes. And the problem with stealing eyes, and this is where Georgia Tech and Buster Fulton were great. They did a lot of the things to steal your eyes, a lot of the misdirections, a lot of the movement, but then they hit quickly north and south. Some of Texas's things with misdirection and play action are a little bit more elongated. That gives you time to get to the quarterback. Can't do that in this game. It's got to be one quick fake, one quick movement, one quick jet, one quick orbit motion, and then get the ball out, hand the ball off, run the ball north and south. Get the ball over the middle, either on some sort of a dig, crosser, or to the tight end up the seam. It cannot be elongated plays that take a long time to develop in the pocket, or Georgia's going to get there. Let's just be honest. They're just going to get there, and that's going to be a problem. So game day's never a problem because we know we have college football on, and it's fun to watch it. Even though it's winding down, we're going to enjoy it again. If you have a problem with your energy or you're not getting sleep, you feel on edge, it could be the effects of low testosterone, and Game Day Men's Health wants to help you. Here's what you do right now. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, sign up for a free consultation. You'll get a free testosterone test. You get a free PSA test. Right out of the gate, they'll know where your health is. Then they can present the options that they have that they could be able to help you with. You can save 10% on any of those by mentioning Cube as soon as you walk in the door. They just want to give you an idea of where you are and then offer up what they can do to help. Locker room environment, stress-free, not going to try to push you into anything that you don't want to do. Great people at Game Day Men's Health, holistic approach to health and wellness. And this is important, guys, a minimal upfront cost for the programs that they offer. You're not going to have to pay this extravagant fee upfront to even begin the programs that they have there. Also, weight loss programs that they have that they can get you on and get you going to help you feel better and help you be a better you. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Sign up for that free consultation today. Texas, Georgia, what does Stanford Steve think? We'll talk to him about it next right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Auburn defensive lineman TJ Lindsey, freshman, has announced he's going to hit the transfer portal. Arkansas offensive lineman Patrick Kudas, he's actually started a couple years, played a lot of football. He's going to enter the transfer portal. Florida tight end Arlis Boardingham, who, if you've watched him operate a little bit, long, athletic, has pretty good hands, could be a good get for somebody if you can kind of get him going. And I'm beginning to wonder about things in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm going to be honest with you. Berrien Brown, wide receiver in the portal. Dane Key, wide receiver in the portal. Offensive lineman Cortland Ford in the portal. Tight end Jordan Dingle in the portal. Jordan Dingle has played a lot of football for them. Now, Cortland Ford was a little bit of a letdown. They needed him to do some more things. Hasn't really come around. Berrien Brown, Dane Key both have that ability, have shown signs of being great, specifically in kick returns, but also as wide receivers, but it's also been super inconsistent. But Kentucky had a little bit of a letdown on signing day, and now they're getting gutted in the portal. And you just have to kind of wonder about, is this thing going to be able to be reset? Because you've hit the reset button on one side of the ball a couple times here recently. Now, really just don't know how that's going to go. But as we move on through football season and the weather cools, make sure your HVAC system is ready for the cold weather on the way. For long-term reliability of a Trane home comfort system, that's your answer. Give you peace of mind right now. You can receive up to a 10-year warranty on parts and labor with select Trane comfort systems. To learn more, visit Trane.com. Remember, it's hard to stop a Trane. Stanford Steve of College Game Day joins us each and every Friday right here on the Buyers Right Hotline. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. Steve, we were talking about this SEC championship game and just kind of where it all is. For me, I think the main issue here is Texas able to understand how Georgia is going to hit them the second time around? Because I referenced these old Alabama teams and now some of these Georgia teams. Like, we think a lot of these teams are going to match up well, and then they get punched, and all of a sudden it just doesn't go the way that they want it to. Can Texas sort of weather that storm in round two?
Yeah, I believe they can, Cole. It's interesting. I was on the field, for that Texas-Georgia game. I was on the field in College Station last week, and I was actually talking to a bunch of the Texas guys about Georgia and what gave them, when they were self-assessing things. And they said the number one thing was Kirby caught them off guard. Him and Schumann did a great job, and they used the word unconventional, whether it was alignment, bringing guys from depth, situations, like down and distance. Like, Kirby went totally against his normal script of when he brought heat, when he didn't, when he played minimal guys on the box, and that really confused Texas. You saw that, through the process of the game. Got their feet on the ground in the second half, but it was just too little, too late. So I think the big part of this game is matching the physicality, which I think, Texas, thought a little too highly of themselves in that first game, and then just buttoning it all up. I will say, I know the scoreboard didn't say it, but I thought I was super impressed with Texas last week. Going into that environment, knowing that you had a big old bullseye on your back, and you lose your left tackle, and you got a redshirt freshman that comes in and has one false start, and then I saw one MA the next play actually after that false start, and he held it together. Now, holding it together is not going to win an SEC championship. You have to shore things up big time. And I look at the way Texas goes about things offensively with Sark's creativeness. Are those not trick plays, but the long developing plays? Are they shored up protection wise? Are they going to be able to hold up to get those guys loose? Because the biggest thing against Georgia is I think that's the biggest thing in this game, and that's why, there were so many turnovers in the last one, is both teams want to throw the ball. I don't think that either one can run the ball against each other. I am curious to see how long Georgia stays trying to run the football. But no, both these teams have to win with their offensive line, and I think Georgia's been better since Ratledge get back. So that's the matchup there.
Are we giving this game enough respect? We were talking during the break, and just the three of us here in studio kind of decided that we all agree it's lacking a little bit of buzz. This is Georgia and Texas. I know it's Texas's first year in the SEC. They've been preparing for this, and it doesn't feel maybe as big as I feel like it should feel. Is that because we think both these teams are in the playoff regardless?
I think so, and I also think it's where you're at, Cole. I think everybody around you guys down there is obviously, talking about Bama and the possibility of getting in. I mean, being here yesterday, it's live. Can't wait to get you up here. The setup is spectacular. You've been to these games. It's my favorite conference championship. It's not even close when it comes to conference championship games. The way the building is 50-50. It did sound like Texas got all their tickets, and Georgia's kind of like, we've been here so many times. We'll see how we feel on game day. So Texas will have their people here. But as a national front, I don't think so. I guess, people can feel that way knowing that we don't have the team in the top two, right now, and the unsureness about the seeding and how. That's why I'm so fired up for this weekend. Is we have that bracket where we're looking at it from Tuesday night, and Boise's 3 with a bye. That's not going to be the case here. Like, we're going to have so much shakeup. You got a chance for upsets. So I think this game has plenty at stake. It's the first one that ESPN has. I mean, we're treating this thing like a Super Bowl. We're going to have, Saban doing pregame and halftime. Like, this thing is as big as it gets in my eyes. And the two brands that you have playing in it, I don't think you get bigger. I know people in your state would have a say. But right now, when you talk about who's hot in the country and what Texas looked like last week and the crazy game Georgia played in last week, we got all we want in this game here in Atlanta.
All right, so which direction do you lean here? Texas 2.5-point favorite this time around. We've seen this game. We know how it went the first time. We know why it might be different, but are you really liking one side of it?
I don't really like it. I do lean Georgia because if you got to beat the bully, and Texas has to prove that in my eyes. Georgia's been here. I do think Georgia will be able to throw the ball. That's what you got to do against Texas is throw the ball, especially like middle of the field. You saw them use the tight ends against Tennessee. Those guys have only gotten better. When you look at that tight end room, and the expectation, I thought, was a little too much at the beginning of the year, knowing that you lost Brock Bowers. But now you see those guys round into form. But mostly, and talking to people, they've really accepted their roles. I thought Jurasik was a guy that struggled coming from Stanford early in the year, but he's found his niche. He's more of an edge guy. He's more of a guy that's going to run down those teams. So I look at Beck as being the key. Both quarterbacks are going to be better than they were in that first game. They have to be. They both got caught off guard with coverages and different blitzes. So I look at Georgia as being a live dog, and I believe I'm picking them to win.
All right, so you like Georgia. Stanford Steve of College Game Day with us, joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. Big Ten championship, one that I feel like is being treated a little bit the same way because we don't think either of these teams can play their way out of this playoff. I think Penn State can challenge this team in some different ways. I think because of how they manage their run game, they can withstand a little bit of the scheme that Oregon's going to try to throw at them. I don't think they'll be overpowered or overmatched by this Oregon football team. I think that they have a chance to get home with 4 if they can get Oregon into some second, third, and longs. Now, getting beat over the top is where Oregon can handle just about anybody, and they give everybody problems. And then you have Tyler Warren, who's just the ultimate wild card, who can carry the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball, do everything for you. How much of a chance do you give Penn State to actually go out and win this football game?
It's funny, Cole. It's like every other time in a top 5 game like this. I always give them a chance, but they never come through on the end of having the ability. You look at the game against Ohio State. Well, I'm on the sidelines there. They get a pick 6. They get a field goal on their opening drive. They're up 10-0. The place is rocking. Ohio State goes right down the field 2 straight times. The whole momentum of that game changed, and Ohio State fumbles going in, and Penn State can never recover. To me, it's about Drew Aller. What is he going to do on those 3rd and 7s when you know you have to throw the ball? You don't really have wide receivers that could separate. I always like the Georgia philosophy. When I have NFL running backs, I'm going to throw the ball to them and get them in the space. I haven't seen that with that offense. Warren's not going to be able to give you 3rd and 7 comeback throws, time after time. He's a great player, as valuable as there is in the country. So to me, it's, again, a lot like Georgia and Texas. I got to go with Oregon until Penn State proves it to me. You mentioned it. I like the matchup for Penn State. They have difference makers on the defensive front, more so than Ohio State did. And Ohio State never brought heat against Dylan Gabriel. Now, I will say Oregon's plan against Ohio State was that, to combat if they did bring heat, because the quick throw game. And you mentioned how good Dylan is throwing the deep ball. So until I see it, I'll take Oregon in the Big Ten game.
I want to go to one tonight. I think you and I both love this UNLV team, what they do offensively, how they manage things. And now we're hearing Coach Miriam's been up for like every coordinator or some head coaching jobs across the country. They're number 20, Boise number 10, 10-2 UNLV, 11-1 Boise. Boise won this game first time around. I actually think right now UNLV is the better football team. Yep. Ashton Genty is like 80% of what Boise does, both on offense and defense, I think. But it's on the blue turf at Albertson Stadium. Is that enough for you to just not be able to get past in this game to even play UNLV?
No, because I know what Coach Odom brings to the table in a way where only he can. I love what he does. He's spectacular in that post-game press conference last week when he was talking about being humbled and where he was going. Like that, you see that identity of the team resonating with him and what he brings to the table. And I like UNLV because of the idea that they've seen Genty before. They've seen this Boise State offense. It's not the most dynamic offense. You just mentioned the percentage of what he is to that offense. I like my chances going on the road. You have everything you want. No one has mentioned that UNLV could be in the playoff or Iowa State could be in the playoff. All week, those two teams have been so disrespected because when again, going back to the bracket, they're nowhere to be found. So I think there's plenty of motivation for UNLV tonight. You play well defensively. You did a good job against Genty last time. You get some things going with your offense. The conditions don't look too crazy. We know the success of years past with Boise, but that really doesn't mean much. This is a brand new UNLV team with Barry Odom coming in. So I like the idea of UNLV going in there and pulling off the upset.
All right, so you just said it. Stanford Steve with us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Thanks to Atlas Senior Living. See him tomorrow morning on College Game Day live from Atlanta. Iowa State, Arizona State. We know Arizona State down some firepower offensively, but runs the football maybe as well as any non-military institute in college football right now. Can Iowa State offset that part of it? I think they can generate some offense with Rocco Becht, but are they going to be able to slow things down when Arizona State decides to run the football enough to be in or win this game?
The numbers say they're not going to be able to, Cole. When you look at it, Iowa State, and then, talking to Coach Saban, going back to week one when we were talking about the 3-3-5 defense, you have to be able to run the football against it. And teams have. I think it's close to 5 yards to carry Iowa State gives up. But something tells me now with the injury on the outside, you look at Arizona State and their leading receiver who's out has 75 catches. The next guy, I believe, has like 12 or 13. And then it's Scadaboo, who's the second biggest receiver for them. So I think it's a big adjustment change. And Iowa State can, manipulate things knowing that Arizona State doesn't have their biggest difference maker on the outside. And again, no one has mentioned Iowa State. No one's talked about that they're even in this game. So I look at Matt Campbell as in a monster underdog role. You see the point spread's only a couple points. I love what Rocco Becht brings to the table, a total gamer, and what he's done with his team this year. We're at the top of the standings, and they tripped up a couple times. And then they had, last week's a must-win, and they played really well offensively against the defense, and I think it's better than Arizona State. So I'm going to take the underdog there. I'm going to take Iowa State in that game with Matt Campbell.
All right, Steve, you mentioned it. Jordan Tyson, 75 for 1101, 10 touchdowns. The next closest receiver will be Xavier Guillory, 17 catches, 291 yards.
There you go. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on a kid's plate in a title game.
That's a lot. And so we'll see if they can overcome that. Anything else from a Lions perspective that you like this weekend? I feel like that with a kickoff temperature of 39 in Charlotte, I almost feel like 55.5 is a little bit too high for Clemson and SMU. I know that those offenses have opportunities to be able to get going. Things always seem to slow down a little bit in conference title games, at least early. But is maybe the under in that game your play? What else looks really good for you this weekend?
Here's a question I had for you in that game. When you watch Clemson, and I know we're offensive guys. We don't really like the defensive guys. But Clemson, when they know it's a passing situation, it feels like their motors are at 100. And then when they're indecisive, when it's 1st and 10, and they're playing run, and they don't look like they play with the same speed. So to me, can SMU offset that and go against the grain in their play calls? Can they keep them on their heels? Because Clemson's a really good defense, but then they let Sellers break free for huge plays in that game, and I think those are the difference in the game. So can Clemson be the Clemson defense of old? I know the personnel is different, but when I look at SMU, and this is what interests me, is how off script Jennings plays all the time and holding the ball, being elusive, avoiding guys in the pocket, holding on to the ball for his guys to get open. Can Clemson take advantage of that? I believe they can, and they're going to get to him. And he's, because he's so off script, he puts himself in some situations you don't want. And you talk about what's at stake. Clemson's coming in here knowing that win, they're in, lose, and they're out. SMU has had to deal with this talk all week. I look at Clemson with Dabo's experience in these games. You mentioned the weather. I look at Maffa. They got to get him going. I think he's a big-time difference maker. And I just wonder about SMU. This is the best defense they face. This is probably the best offense they faced. How are they going to respond? That's a lot to ask for. I'll take Clemson.
Steve, we always appreciate it, man. Always fun visiting with you. Look forward to seeing you here in a couple hours.
Yeah, let's get together tonight. Let's get up here tonight for this SEC game, bud.
We're looking forward to it. Have a good one.
All right, my man.
Stanford Steve, College Game Day. You see him tomorrow morning on College Game Day. See him weeknights, SVP Sports Center. Scott Van Pelt joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living. We always appreciate Atlas Senior Living for bringing Stanford Steve on each and every week. We'll get to a break, come back, talk more of Championship Weekend right here on Jocks 94.5. Watch the show live on YouTube every morning. Search JOX 945 on YouTube, and you can watch that way. Greg McElroy is with us, apparently.
Oh, yeah. No, great start to the day. Just love it. Thanks a lot, American. Try to get here to Charlotte, do the show, do all that stuff, and hour and 7-minute delay right off the top. You know, because why wouldn't it be delayed? Considering the plane's sitting there, everything's perfect. Why wouldn't it be delayed in the morning, first flight out at 5:20?
I just feel like that's just kind of par for the course. Happens often. So hate that it happened to you this morning. You're in a minute suite in the Charlotte airport?
Yeah, new Minute Suite location. So at least we can check this box. Never done the Minute Suite in Charlotte Airport. Have done the show from Charlotte Airport before, but that was from a rocking chair.
I don't know why you didn't go rocking
Pre-Minute
chair.
Suite.
We had photographs of you sent in on that. I don't know why you wouldn't have just gone with that.
Well, the Minute Suite became available, after the exploration with the Minute Suite last year. We've had such a positive experience, so I figured we'd just ride the hot hand. The only thing that can turn the mood around, turn the show around, and turn, frankly, my anger around is the Minute Suite. So we have this going. But other than that, stewing on a plane with no Wi-Fi for the last hour or whatnot, frustration about having to put my carry-on bag below the plane. Everything else has been par for the course, standard, but the Minute Suite will always bring you back. That's all you need. All you need is Minute Suite in your life.
You're going to have, that's going to, bag going under on American, just for me, that's just about every trip. So that's just going to be what it is. Just kind of happens that way. So you're not going to operate around that. That's going to be what it is. But listen, we've had some good talk about Championship Saturday. We've kind of gotten it off talking about the importance of these games, kind of what they mean. Gusty Ghouls and the Gusty Ghouls Group should be important to you if you're looking for a new home in the Birmingham area. Brokered by eXp Realty, served over 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. And since 2012, Gusty Ghouls Group has been recognized both nationally, locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. Over 835-star Google reviews. Google Gusty Ghouls Group now, or go to GustyGhoulsGroup.com. See what they can do for you. That's 205-542-1996. 205-542-1996. Or visit GustyGhoulsGroup.com today and start packing. Do you feel like people are sort of sleeping on this SEC championship game a little bit? Do you feel like it's getting the buzz it deserves, Greg?
I think it will, without question, when it arrives. I mean, this was the most watched game of the entire college football season, was Georgia and Texas. So I think when it gets there, people will feel fired up about it. But I still think people are a little uncomfortable with the fact that it's been played before. The fact that the last time it was played, it was pretty unappetizing from a football purist perspective. It was just a cacophony of errors on many different sides. So I think that is what most people are probably struggling with. But let's be real, man. I mean, these are two of the best rosters in the sport. And anytime you get a chance to watch two of the best go at it, I mean, you got to be pretty excited about that opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, we'll talk more Georgia, Texas, and the rest of championship weekend next right here on Jocks 94.5. 7:49 Friday, December 6th on Jocks 94.5. Covering championship weekend, just saw locally that the temperatures for the end of the game tonight in Jacksonville, 27 degrees.
The way it should be, right?
Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State. You can catch that game tonight at 6 on CBS Sports Network. Western Kentucky 8-4, Jacksonville State 8-4 for the Conference USA Championship, Amherst Stadium. Going to be a chilly one. Jacksonville State 5-point favorite, but just keep in mind these two teams played 7 days ago, and Western Kentucky was a winner of that game. So we'll see how it plays out this time. I don't know if I think it's going to go the same way. I kind of like Jacksonville State in this one, GMAC, specifically being at home. I think gives them a pretty big advantage. But I don't know. Temperatures probably favor Jacksonville State with the way they're able to run the football.
Well, a couple reasons why I would lean towards Jacksonville State is that they can run the football. Western Kentucky gives up 210 yards a game on the ground. They're 123rd against the run. The one problem the only reason why I wouldn't go with Jacksonville State here is their quarterback's a game time decision. So with Tyler Huff, if he can go, which I don't know if he'll be able to go. He's got an ankle injury, and he's really more of a runner than he is a thrower. So if the ankle injury hinders him at all, they might be forced to go with the backup, Logan Smothers, who's not really going to be able to operate the offense at the same level of efficiency. So that would be a little bit concerning. But if we find out that Jack State's quarterback's up, good to go. Locked and loaded Jack State by 1 million. If not, then it's a problem. So, yeah, I lean Jack State, but it's kind of operating under the assumption that Huff will be ready to go.
You get that one tonight. Also tonight, you get UNLV at Boise, 7 o'clock on Fox. This game's already been played, Greg. Boise won. I think we believe UNLV is the better football team. And I asked Stanford Steve this, is being on the blue turf too much to overcome? He said no. How much of a difference does that make for you, the fact that it's going to be played there?
It doesn't. I actually lean UNLV in this game. I looked at that game actually earlier this week, watched UNLV and Boise. They did a pretty good job with Ashton Ginty the last time. He's been a workhorse, but if you really look at his efficiency running the football the last handful of weeks, it's not quite as good. 31 carries in every game in the second half of the season. I mean, that takes its toll. And I'm not sold on Maddox Matson being able to keep him honest throwing the football like he was last time. Last time against UNLV, he was 9 of 12 for 125. I don't envision a performance close to that under the assumption that it's super cold and all these other things. So I think this is going to be a game that comes down to the wire, and it's ultimately UNLV's defense that I feel better about. UNLV's rushing attack, by the way, they have 3 running backs, and their quarterback, Haj Malik Williams, he's really good with the ball in his hands as well. So I think there's just more things that you have to defend when you're going against UNLV than there is against Boise. And when you are a little one-dimensional and all UNLV has to do is focus on stopping the run, I think they got a chance to really pull off the upset. I think they're going to, too, tonight. I also think playing at home in a situation like this might be even more pressure for Boise, knowing what's potentially on the line.
You mentioned temperatures and being cold. That might be the story of tonight. Temp at kickoff, Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, 34. UNLV, Boise, 32. Tulane at Army, 28 at kick. 7 o'clock on ABC tonight, Tulane at Army. Don't feel like a lot of people are giving Army a lot of love in this game. Now, athletically, Tulane, with Mensa and company on offense, they're going to have a lot of advantages. But Army's not a group I think you're just going to push around. Love Army's offense. I think they will find ways to move the football. If Tulane can get on the perimeter, get in space, I worry a little bit about the Army defense and probably why Tulane's favored by 5. But at home in those conditions, how much do you like Army tonight against Tulane, or do you not?
I don't. Partly because, one, I don't think Army's played anybody. They've played one top 30 team, and that was Notre Dame. They lost by 35. So, yes, they have wins over bowl-eligible teams in UTSA, North Texas, and East Carolina, but those teams have a combined record of 19-17. Those teams have a combined record of 13-11 in conference play. They didn't play Tulane. They didn't play Navy. They didn't play Memphis. Those are the top teams in the AAC. So I don't think Army's played anybody. I think they're the product of a very fortuitous schedule. And I look at how Tulane handled Navy a couple weeks ago. It was 35-0. And Navy rushed for 114 yards. That is not a winning recipe. I think Tulane has a massive advantage in the trenches. And the only thing that I think could maybe affect how Tulane plays in this game is the alleged interest that North Carolina is showing in John Summerall, and just maybe the players feeling that a little bit. That would be the only thing I think that could potentially affect Tulane here, because they should win this thing going away.
Yeah, we need to talk about that North Carolina job. Speaking of interest, we'll do that later in the 8 o'clock hour. Jeff Schwartz will be with us on the other side to talk Oregon in the Big Ten title game this weekend. My friends at Royal Automotive want to help you experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location, selection and savings unmatched. Royal, the only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Right now, get up to $15,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. Then sign and drive with 0 down, 0 security deposit, 0 first month's payment, 0 due at signing on select Volkswagen Atlas, Tiguan, and Taos models, or sign and drive any new Volvo XC40, XC60, and XC90 model with 0 down, 0 due at signing, and 0 for your first payment. Go see my friends at Royal. They're going to help you get the best deal available. All offers valid through January 2nd. Certain restrictions apply. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. Online, royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. Remember, for every ride, there's Royal. All right, when we come back, I mentioned Jeff Schwartz with us. We're going to focus in on the Big Ten championship game. Saturday night, 7 p.m. on CBS. Number 3, Penn State. Number 1, Oregon, from Lucas Oil Stadium in Naptown. Give you some thoughts on that one. Still got to get to all the other conference championship games coming up this weekend. We got the Sun Belt. We got the MAC. Obviously, Big 12, SEC. Spend more time talking about all of those, getting your breakdowns. We have new players in the portal that we need to discuss. Coaching searches, coaches being fired, coaches potentially being hired, all coming up on the other side of this break. 2 more hours of Max Ball Friday right here on Jocks 94.5. Hour number 2 underway. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Greg in the Minute Suites at the Charlotte Airport. You doing better?
I'm doing a little better. Yeah, I'm settling in. Frustration, but I'm back. I'll be all right. I'll be fine.
Good deal. SEC championship game coming up this weekend. We know that's going to be a big one. Also, we'll talk a little bit of Big 12 this hour. Haven't spent much time on that. Iowa State, Arizona State. We talked a lot of Georgia, Texas, first segment, first hour of the show, but want to dial in now on a little bit of Penn State and Oregon and just kind of everything that game is, what that game means. First off, James Franklin, earlier this week, just kind of talking about some of the challenges that Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel will, I guess, offer up to his team tomorrow night.
You're not going to give him a whole lot that he hasn't seen before. And he's surrounded with really good talent. The running backs are really good. The tight end is a really good player. The receivers are dynamic. So, you know, he's put himself in really good situations where he's played a ton of football. You got an experienced quarterback. Their play caller does a really good job of getting people in space. And he looks very comfortable and relaxed, and because of that, he's thrown for a very high percentage. You very rarely ever see him get rattled, and he's throwing the guys that can make plays for him. So it's a combination of skill, it's a combination of scheme, and it's a combination of the guys that he has around him plus experience.
So that's James Franklin, Penn State head football coach, discussing the challenges that Dylan Gabriel presents to his team. Jeff Schwartz joins us now. Played his college football at Oregon, covers the NFL and college football for Fox. Jeff, what does Oregon have to do around Dylan Gabriel to allow the Ducks to go grab a Big Ten championship tomorrow night?
Well, I think we have to protect early. You know, that's important when you have a quarterback that, I think at times in games when he's been hit early, he looks less confident. And you're knowing that Penn State's pass rush, especially 11, is really elite, right? So I think early on it's important to make Dylan Gabriel comfortable in the pocket. We saw against Ohio State, you know, just early on he wasn't getting hit, he didn't get hit at all, but you know, it's just sort of the confidence building because Penn State plays a ton of man coverage. I think it's eighth most of the country, and a ton of press too. And if you can give him time, we have wide receivers that can get open. And, you know, if he feels like he's got to leave the pocket early or he's looking around to see where the rush is at, that's going to affect the timing of the offense. And I think really early on, it's important to establish good pass protection. They could do that in many different ways, obviously. You go empty and throw the ball quickly. You can max protect and find ways to help on 11. 11 lines up Carter, lines up a lot over the left tackle, which is easier to scheme when he's on one side for most of the game. He will move every now and then. So, you know, identifying pressure, Penn State pressures a good amount too. So there's many different ways I think that, you know, Oregon can sort of make Gabriel feel comfortable early in the game.
What do you make of the matchup between the tackles and the edge rushers for Penn State? I think that's obviously what they do best is rush the passer. I'm not sure. I don't know how good their cover guys are because I think most teams are not really trying to hold it for a long time and push the ball down the field. So how do you assess that matchup? Is that a matchup that can be won by Penn State?
I mean, it has to be won by Penn State if they want to win the game, in my opinion, right? You look at again, Carter versus Connerly for the most part. It's going to be tough for Connerly. Look, he's a first-round tackle most likely. This is, you know, a top 10 draft pick at defensive end or pass rusher. And, you know, Carter's ability to get off the ball with speed and also win inside. We saw last week he had a great spin move, and Connerly at times has been beaten inside this year. That's where I think his weakness is. He oversets a little bit and guys go inside, so just being really solid there. I'm not as worried about their other pass rusher. You know, he doesn't win as much one-on-one. What they do a lot is they sort of let 11 rush by himself. On the other side, they just do a lot of games. They're a very pro-style pass rush. They really scheme up sort of the side opposite of 11 really well. So I'm not as concerned with that one-on-one matchup on the right tackle side. I'm concerned about just sorting out pressures. You really don't play teams that rush the passer like Penn State does, just design, and then have the athletes to do so, right? You might have teams that try to do it with lesser athletes. So, but yeah, the left tackle against Carter is going to be a matchup. You've seen no one like that all season. The Ohio State guys are not the same as Carter, and Connolly will have a lot on his plate. Again, they might have a running back help or a tight end at certain times. But look, I think you ideally don't want those guys to help. You want those guys in the route. You want them in the route concept. You want them part of the passing game. So a lot will be on his plate. But look, he's projected to be a first-round tackle. If you want to be a first-round pick, you got to block first-round guys. And so this will be a fun matchup to watch.
Jeff Schwartz, former Oregon Duck, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline to preview the Big Ten title game. How important, how critical is it for Penn State to negate or limit the deep shots from this Oregon offense? If they can find a way to take those away, how confident would you be in everything else Oregon has or does to be able to find a way to get a Big Ten title?
Well, it'd be much tougher for offense to sort of methodically go down the field, which I think it is for all college offense. Like I really think the college game, especially offensively, you have to hit explosive plays. If you don't, and you rely on 10, 12 play drives, it's college football, man. Things go wrong. The more plays that you have on offense, right? One bad snap, now it's a one negative run, now it's 2nd and 11. So the quicker you can score, I think it's better. And Penn State and that's going to be their pass rush, in my opinion. Their secondary players are okay, but they haven't also played a team that will challenge them vertically. Ohio State, again, Ohio State just doesn't do it enough. It's wild to me with athletes they have. They don't take more shots down the field. If we can't do that, it's going to be a problem. And we'll see how that goes. Again, it comes down to protection. If we can protect, I think we'll be fine. If we can't, then we play in the Penn State's hands. And two, like having a lead. I think Penn State wants to play defense up 10, up 17 to rush the passer and pin their ears back. So making sure that if we do get behind and stick to the game plan, I think they feel comfortable running the football against this Penn State front that does they move a ton. They don't play straight up a bunch because they're not best when they just sort of have to take on blocks, single blocks up front, and they move a ton. So hopefully we're able to sort of find some creases in some of those run stunts and have some big gains.
Optimistic are you about the run game? Because it does feel like it's come on a little bit. I don't know if they're quite as dynamic as they were a year ago with Bucky, but it does feel like they're trending in that direction. I mean, is there enough balance that you think in this offense to be able to make a run?
So they don't have the explosiveness to, I think, break long runs they had last season. But Jordan James has as many yards as Bucky did last year. Did a couple more rushes. I think like 20 more rushes than Bucky did. I'll give you guys a name. There's a true freshman, number 21. Last name is Riggs. I think he's going to start getting more run. He's our most explosive runner. He's played a little bit more in the last couple of weeks into these games. I think his red shirt's over now, so he can play a little bit more. I would not be surprised if at one point we saw him in this game if they're having trouble breaking some runs. Because he's got the juice. He's the guy that I think of all the running backs can bring a little more juice to break some of those long runs. But James he's averaging, 5.5 a carry. I haven't looked recently. I just know how many yards he has. But yeah, we don't have, I think, quite the explosive nature of our running backs this year, but we can grind out runs like the best of them. I mean, I'm not really worried about our run game. I think we're going to attack downhill. I think we're going to go right at those guys. We don't block a lot of sideways anyways. We kind of just run right at them. I do wonder how much of the RPO game, which we don't do a ton of, we haven't done actually in quite a while, of just getting the ball to the edge when there's man coverage. If you're going to play press, we'll throw slants behind linebackers that react to the run. Like I think that'll be a little bit part of the run game that we haven't seen so much in the last month of the season.
Jeff Schwartz with us on the Buyers Right Hotline talking Oregon, Penn State. The Penn State offense, what area concerns you most about the Oregon defense with what Penn State brings to this championship game?
Two things. One is quarterback runs. We've had trouble this season, especially early in games with quarterback runs. You go to the Oregon State game, you go to the game last weekend. Early in that game, Williams was able to bust some runs, and we sort of tightened down those as the game goes along. So they bring in their backup quarterback, or even I'm not actually as concerned if Tyler Warren plays quarterback, but actually that's an advantage when you have a tight end playing quarterback and running Wildcat. Like, sign me up for that. I think it's tough in obviously third down or fourth down situations, but you're going to have a first and 10 play and put a tight end at quarterback and run a wildcat. I think that's suited for our defense pretty well. And then I am worried about Warren as a pass catcher. He's outstanding. He's a little different than Loveland at Michigan, who had 100 yards on us. They move Warren around a bunch. He's not really a lineup, at X essentially and run a route, by himself against a safety. They move him around a bunch of tight end screens, a little middle, little shovel passes, little middle screens. Against USC, they put him in, did some sort of quote unquote trick plays with him. We don't really have a safety or linebacker that I'm like, yeah, that's the guy who's going to do well against Warren. So I am concerned about that. And quarterback runs. We've been fine against the run. I know people use that as kind of a thing, like, Oregon's run defense. I mean, yeah, Boise wasn't good, but 200 yards against Purdue we gave up and they scored 0 points, and 140 against Wisconsin, 13 points, 120 against Oregon State, 14 points. I'm not as concerned about when Singleton runs the ball. Quarterback runs worry me, and then just making sure that we find a way to try to limit Warren. We don't have man coverage, got to play a ton of man too, that really match up well against tight ends.
Are you one other thing I'm curious about, just in Big Ten in general? Obviously, Ohio State, I think, is a good team. We'll find out about Penn State. I really don't know. God's honest truth, I really don't know. I don't know about Indiana. You reference teams like Wisconsin and Purdue and some other teams. I don't think the Big Ten's very good, top to bottom, full disclosure. Frankly, I don't know how good anybody is anymore. So do you feel like the Big Ten is adequately prepared Oregon for what they're going to experience in the postseason?
Well, the SEC is the best conference, huh? Of course it is. It's always the best conference. I'm
not sure it's close, to be honest with you, based on players and talent. I mean, top to bottom.
I mean, I'm pretty much okay with Oregon's ability to play against anyone this season in the trenches. We have a Joe Moore Award finalist. We offensive line. We have 2 tackles that'll be drafted in the top 50. We have multiple defensive linemen that'll be drafted high in the draft. Like, I'm not concerned about the physical nature of our trench. I am concerned a little bit at linebacker against a bigger offensive line, which has been a concern of mine all season. But I'm not concerned like physically how we match up against teams around the country. That's like the least of my concern. Again, individual matchups and sort of players worry me against certain types of schemes, but I'm not concerned that our offensive line can't block other defensive fronts around the country. That's not really something that worries me terribly much.
Jeff, appreciate the time today, man. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the Big Ten championship game tomorrow night, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Take care, bud. Have a good weekend, guys. All
right, Jeff Schwartz joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. I understand the sentiment, Greg, of Tyler Warren at quarterback, not a big threat, but I don't think it's necessarily just what he is actually going to do himself. I think it's just the change-up aspect of that. The difference in personnel, being lined up correctly, having to prepare for it. It's a little bit more all-encompassing to me as far as what he offers, being able to do so many different things than, hey, is he going to run for 200 yards lined up as a Wildcat quarterback?
Yeah, the 200 yards doesn't concern me. I think it's more just the amount of different things that you have to prepare for and the amount of chalk you burn. I think that's the challenge of playing against Penn State and Andy Kotelnicki is they just give you a lot of different looks. Like there's going to be 4 or 5 different looks that Oregon's never seen before. Tyler Warren might be a quarterback or he might even be playing center. Like he snapped the ball and caught a touchdown on the same play earlier in the season. So they just have a bunch of strange and unique things that get you to burn chalk. And that would be something that would concern me just a little bit. I'm not saying that I think Oregon's a better football team. I think Oregon's the best team in the country. I think they have very few questions. I do wonder a little bit about the quality of the Big Ten from top to bottom, if I'm being completely honest. And whether or not Oregon has been tested, because if their toughest, quote, test, their toughest road test or whatever is Wisconsin, I'm not a big believer in the Badgers. So I do think there's some concerns there, but as far as Tyler Warren playing quarterback and just running it down their throat, that wouldn't be something that would scare me to death because I just don't trust Penn State's offensive line enough to expect them to open holes well enough for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, not the rushing part from him, but just different things he might be able to offer. You look at Russ defense, Boise went for 221 on 33 carries against this Oregon defense. Purdue actually ran for 208. That would be the 2 largest outputs on the ground the teams have had against them. Wisconsin 130, Illinois 132, Oregon State 131. So they've held multiple opponents under 100 rushing yards. It almost feels like you either get a decent amount or don't get any. Michigan only had 105. So they've been pretty solid against the run the majority of the year, but a couple of teams have been able to find some things. Probably some of that having to do with the fact that those games weren't necessarily competitive as well. So I think Penn State has some things that they can do that will complicate this game. You mentioned Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator for Penn State. Are you with me in thinking that it's vital for him to not overthink this game and not go in and be overly creative, I guess get too cute in this game if Penn State's going to have a chance to win it?
Yeah, because I do think that if you take the fight to Oregon, I mean, Jeff talked a little bit about their personnel. I think they have excellent personnel. But I do wonder a little bit about if you take the fight to them and you make it a slug fest, a body blow fest, is that the game that they want to play? I think they can play that game. I just don't know if that's the game they want to play. So I would challenge them physically, absolutely. If I were Penn State, I would be reinforcing, whether this is true or not, the message that I would try to create in the locker room if I were James Franklin is, we're more physical than them. We're a traditional Big Ten team, and we're going to show them that we play the game from a physicality standpoint at a different level than they've seen so far. That would be the message. Now, I don't know if it's true. We'll find out. But I do believe that there are enough things that Penn State does well that can complicate things for Oregon. The one thing I would be concerned about, like you kind of alluded to, being too creative doesn't really concern me. My biggest concern is not being able to manufacture any big plays, because I don't think that their offensive line's good enough to be able to create huge holes that will be able to be exploited by Nicholas Singleton, who's not great at creating his own shot. Like if he finds the edge, or if he finds a crease, or if it's wide open, if the hole is big enough to drive a Mack truck through, he's phenomenal. But he's got to be at 100%. He's not a guy that can like dance in the backfield, buy a little time, and then boom, put his foot in the ground and go create. So that would concern me a bit. And Katrin Allen just hasn't been the same guy this year for whatever reason. So I don't think they're going to be able to create enough big plays. And I think ultimately Oregon will kind of weather the storm, get them behind the sticks after they stuff a couple runs. And Aller's not going to be able to find a lot of openings if it's not going in the direction of Tyler Warren.
All right, so we'll talk more about that game on the other side. I actually have a mind-blowing, not statistic, but event based on something that we discussed yesterday, that if Greg thought yesterday was hard to believe, wait until I tell him what I have today along the same lines. We'll talk about that when we come back next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Welcome back, McElroy, Cubelic in the morning. 9:21 here in Charlotte, North Carolina. 8:21 in Birmingham. Hope everyone's Friday is off to a terrific start. I know it is at Bill Smith Buick GMC. They're the GMC Dealer of the Year. You can go and see for yourself all the deals they have on the lot. There's a reason why they've won the national championship of GMC dealers 7 times. That's the national championship 7 times. It's a dynasty up there in Coleman. If you just go up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31, they have some year-end closeout deals that you want to take advantage of. Alabama, no, this is the largest DMC dealership. They're the largest discounts, the best service, and they are able to offer things like Hummers that are $20,000 off the sticker price, plus 0% for 60 months. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right. Yesterday we talked about moving homes, and Greg McElroy had no knowledge of this. Actually ran into 2 people picking up the kids yesterday that said, Greg didn't know you can move a house, huh? I said, no, nor did he think rheumatologist was real. So that's not
Banner
my
day for McElroy.
Not my fault. Had a buddy of mine, Seth Bryan, longtime listener to the show. He sends me an article yesterday from the Advertiser Gleam.
Okay.
We're familiar with that publication?
I can't say that I am.
Need to subscribe.
Not sure they offer subscriptions,
do
but
they still exist?
Just find it online. Story about longtime house mover Jeff Kennedy. The story ran in April of 1999.
Okay.
When Jeff moved Judy and Chip Manning's home by barge from one side of the peninsula to the other. Without a doubt, Gunnerville's most famous house move of all time. Now, first and foremost, what's he up against? Because if we're just going to hand him that title, I need to know what the competition looks like. Basically, what I'm saying here, against who, is what I need to know.
That's fair.
Okay?
Like,
if
right.
we're just going to give him the
Very
championship,
fair.
I need to know what kind of competition he's been looking at. But Seth told me that he remembered seeing this, but did not know exactly how it took place, that it went basically across the lake, and they moved a house via barge from one side to the other.
That's impressive.
So not only can we move homes, Greg, we can move homes across water.
Yes. That is, I feel like I'm playing Oregon Trail, and you have to decide. When you're crossing the river, you have to decide, are you just going to float it? Are you going to try to do whatever you can with the horses and the oxen out in front? Or are you going to like build a barge, because that costs resources and time? I feel like we're playing that game just in real life now. That's phenomenal. They chose to barge it. Makes sense.
I believe it was forge it. Was it not?
Whatever. Who cares?
Listen, I hate to be the one who's 3 for 3 in intelligent discussions here over the last 2 days.
I love it.
Spell barge.
BARDGE? BARGE.
B-A-R-G-E.
BARGE. Spell forge.
All right, 3 for 4. You're still
pigeon.
passing.
Not pigeon forge, but like
No, correct,
forge
right.
a river.
Or Jordan Rodgers.
The crazy part.
Correct.
The crazy part about this is I'll try to link the story to the Mac and Cube account. This is like a 2-story old colonial home. Like this is not the little 1,500 square foot job we were talking about yesterday.
No, this is a massive haul.
This is a big deal that they're moving here across a freaking lake.
Not small.
So yes, totally different deal from yesterday. But either way, it's pretty impressive that this could happen. So yeah, your mind was blown yesterday that we could actually move a home. Now
we
we can move a home over water.
Yeah, raise you one. That's good to know. It's really good to know. From when I inevitably try to move a house over water, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but now that I know you can, might as well try.
All right,
That's
at
where I
Mac and
look at
Cube,
it.
we have linked that story. The Unhipster lets us know the Advertiser Glean is from Grant, Alabama. Funny paper.
Oh, okay.
Didn't know people went to. Outside of Peanuts, the comics, didn't know people went to newspapers for humor.
It's
But
still alive.
apparently, they can offer that.
The funny pages. Yep.
So, yeah, got that going.
Still a thing.
We have somebody that texted in. You can always text in on the Jocks text line 205-834-9450. Somebody from Texas let us know that they moved a big house over 550 miles across 2 10K mountain peaks via 8 18-wheelers. It can be done anywhere to anywhere.
Now, we talked about cost efficiency. That feels like it's above and beyond
Exact
being
opposite.
cost effective there. Just the 18-wheelers alone to be able to move that house.
18-wheelers.
All right, Stephanie wants to talk house moving. Welcome into the show, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hey, Steph.
Hello.
Hey, hey, I just wanted to say that there used to be a television show that was actually called Texas Movers, I think, based out of Texas, where people went in, bought homes, moved them, and they moved them to a lot where they remodeled the homes. People came in and they auctioned them off and moved them to the people's property. And that's what they did for a living. And I can't believe Greg has never heard of this.
Neither can I, especially the Texas part of this. We feel like he knows everything about Texas, but we were wrong.
Big Texan. Big old
Yeah,
Texas guy.
I think it was called Texas Movers, and it was on like HGTV for several years. And there were several different groups of people that would do this, not just like one. But yeah, they would move them, and people would come in. They would set them up, still have them on the rails, on their lots, remodel them, and people would come in, bid, buy them, and then they would take them and set them on their foundations on their property.
Wow.
Texas Flip and Move.
Yep.
I've got that TV series.
Yeah,
That's it?
Yeah.
The whole house?
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah.
The old Flip and Move.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And you would think, Greg, with all the HGTV that you watch, and you still have not seen this, that really the hardest part to believe.
Well, I only watch Boise Boys. That's the only show I like, as I had to Google what the name was again.
Like Ashton Genty and the rest of the backfield, or what?
Basically, yeah.
It was like a show about the Boise
Boys.
offensive line.
Is this a northern version of
Yes.
Tennessee Wild Boys? Like, what are we doing?
I'm in.
I don't remember what it was, but I did see it before. And there was a time in my life where I did enjoy some HGTV. It was mostly House Hunters, and it was mostly 15 years ago. So it's been quite a while. Now I'm over it, completely over it. So not to say that it's beneath me. If it's on in the background of a hospital, I'll keep it on. But that's pretty much it. It's about the only reason why. Haven't watched it. Need to get back on the wagon.
There was a period of my life, early in my marriage, where HGTV was literally the only thing that my wife consumed. House Hunters was all day, every day. And they would go to these random islands, like they'd go to the Virgin Islands or the Grenadines or something, and these people would be deciding if they wanted this condo, and it's back and forth. I'm like, why? Just, yes. What's the problem? If you can afford it, just go for it. But then they would have these conversations of like getting furniture there and how expensive it was. You're not going to be able to, we can't get materials here, so you're not going to be able to remodel. It got super complicated. But no, she was a big fan. And then there was another one where they, something or list it.
Love it. Or
Love it or
list
list it. Yeah.
They
she's
always
big
ended
into
up
that one.
listing it though.
Big
It's so
into that one.
bogus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they literally never loved it. Like that was
Never.
a good show until you realize it was a real fix.
All they're doing is listing that thing.
Is that right?
Yeah. Like, hang on, you're gonna pay for me to upgrade my home? Yeah, I'll sell this house right now, and absolutely cash in and 100%.
And the best part was whenever they decided to list it, that the guy was always like, "Oh, really? Come on."
I get
Yeah, I
every
know. The
time.
guy was like,
Every time.
There was one that was like on the love it side and one that was on the listed side. And I think it was a guy was on the love it side, and the listed side was a female. And she won every time. And
Yeah.
she would talk smack at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I can remember a little bit of that.
Freaking
now.
Washington
I
Generals
remember
of
this.
HGTV.
Whoa, Washington Generals. Okay.
The one.
One thing that we do know, whether it's a house, whether it's a piece of furniture, whether it's everything in your home, Crocker Moving Services is who you need to call, GMAC.
That's right. Not sure. We have yet to confirm whether or not they can move your entire house, your actual home. But I know they can move everything in your home. That's for sure. It's an amazing group. I've used them multiple times. I know you guys will feel the same when you have them out to your house. These guys are pros. They're all background checked. They're all licensed. They're all insured. And they've all been hired by an Iraq War veteran. So you know they're getting the best possible people for your move. I trust them in my home. I know you can trust them in yours as well. So go and check them out today by going to CrockerMovingServices.com. It's CrockerMovingServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
All right, when we come back, the SEC Championship game. Haven't really taken a deep dive with Greg on this game just yet. We'll do that on the other side next. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Texas is 4-2 all time against the Georgia Bulldogs. Of course, the last meeting earlier this season, a 30-15 win for the Georgia Bulldogs in Austin. We'll cover more of the SEC Championship game here in just a few moments. College hoops coming up this weekend. Tonight, you get Prairie View at UAB. That game will be on ESPN+. Sunday, you get Richmond at Auburn from Neville Arena. Richmond 4-4, Auburn 7-1. Austin Peay is at Samford on Sunday. And then Jacksonville State will be at South Alabama. Both those teams 5-3, 3 o'clock on Sunday. Also Saturday, you get last night, Alabama State went down to Southern Miss in men's hoops, 81-64. Hornets go to 3-6 on the season. Kirby Smart discussing what it's going to be like to face Texas again in the SEC Championship game.
First of all, there's not enough time in the week to worry about the stress that Texas's and Sark's offense puts on you. So, like, you can't cover it all. There's no, we could have 2 weeks. We still will feel like, well, what if they do this? What if they do that? There's too much offense that they can select from to try to chase ghost. Look, Arch is not just a quarterback run guy. He's a really good athlete that can take off and run at any time, which is the toughest kind to defend.
So that's Kirby Smart on facing Texas this time around. Also, Steve Sarkisian just on what it's going to be like this time around facing the Georgia Bulldogs again.
No, it's going to be a heck of a challenge as well on Saturday. Georgia's a great football team. I think Kirby and the University of Georgia have been the standard of college football for about the last 7 years or so. National championships and conference championships, have recruited at a really high level. It's got a great coaching staff. So it's a great challenge for us, but one that I know we're looking forward to. And, an opportunity that we want to make sure we make the most of.
So that's both those head coaches heading into this game this weekend, Greg. And we talked a little bit about it and just kind of some of the challenges and how Georgia forced Texas to be wrong last time. Certain protections that Georgia was able to force Texas into that end up allowing them to be able to get pressure, get hits on the quarterback, force turnovers. Do you think Texas can just auto-correct that this time around, having a little bit extra time and then having played this Georgia defense previously?
I think that helps. I also think one thing that will help them drastically is that Quinn Ewers, albeit I don't think he's been playing great football, but I do think the last time they teed it up, he was really banged up. He was not at 100%. He didn't look like he was at 100%. He wasn't moving without a lot of restrictions. He looked like he was seeing some ghosts. Remember, at that point, he was coming back from the injury, an oblique or whatever the heck it ended up being. So I do think that there's something to account for there, just a little rust and maybe a little hesitation and a little less comfort than can be expected this time around. So pretty encouraged by what we will likely see. But at the same time, I still think the offensive line pass pro is something that is not a good matchup for the Texas Longhorns. Like, they got to make sure that they stay on schedule, avoid obvious passing downs, and run the football with some efficiency.
What about the flip side of that? The Georgia offensive line against the Texas pass rush. I mean, does this just basically come down to who can win first and second down?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. I think Texas's pass rush is excellent, and I think Texas can run the ball a whole heck of a lot better than Georgia. Georgia's going to have to rely on quick passing attack, and they're going to have – I know ETN's back and all this other stuff. Like, are you confident in ETN?
I don't know what to expect. I hadn't seen enough recently, so, I mean, no. If he was full go, I'd feel great about it. I mean, I knew he was going to be fine. I'd feel pretty good, but how should we know what we're going to get?
I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can know anything at this point. I think we can be somewhat optimistic about what you might get from ETN and the rushing attack, and maybe they'll make somewhat of a half-hearted commitment to it, but they haven't. Not at this point of the season. I mean, they have not been a team that is wanting to run the football, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you acknowledge that this team is really going to be more about a team that can create through the air, and if they can't create through the air, then they're going to have big issues. The other thing is, I'm not confident that Georgia can win their one-on-ones on the outside. I mean, I don't know which receiver you're throwing to. You throwing to London Humphreys? Like, how much have they improved as a wide receiving core since they've now taken over and started to move in this direction? Like, they're great in catch and run. Catch and run, they're outstanding. I just don't know how good they are at creating initial separation and how polished they'll be at the top of their routes.
Why do you think there's been so stubborn about London Humphreys? Every time he comes in, I feel like he makes plays and he helps them. You go back to the Clemson game. You and I both asked, why did it take so long to get him involved? Look at Georgia Tech. Took him a while to get him going. Like, there's just this big lull in the middle of the season. Times we wouldn't even see him on the field. But it seems like he helps every time he gets opportunities.
I don't think he gets used enough. I think he's one of their most polished weapons. And I think that he is trustworthy. Like, I think he's where he needs to be. I'm not necessarily suggesting he is as much of a fear-invoking wide receiver as Arian Smith. Like, let's be real. Like, Arian Smith out on the field scares defensive coordinators every time. Even if he drops it 3 times a game, it doesn't matter. They still know that he can take over the game and get behind you and do a lot of really impressive things while on the football field. Like London Humphreys doesn't have that wow factor. Yeah, I think he's still underrated from a speed standpoint. I think he's pretty fast. And I also think that Carson trusts him. Like he's where he needs to be. He, like when the route says to be at 12, he's at 12. Like Arian might be at 14, he might be at 8. And I think that has caused some indecision at times for Carson, and I think it's led to the offense maybe taking some unnecessary risks. So I think Humphrey should get more run. I think the tight end should get more run, but I think the tight ends are going to be needed in this game to help with the edges of the line of scrimmage. So I don't know how often they're going to be able to get out in the pass game.
All right, go into some of that first down success, second down success, and maybe get into those good situations. Here's what those two teams have done on the ground this year. On the ground, Georgia averages 5.13 per carry on first down, 933 yards. Texas, 4.86, but they've run for over 1,000 yards, 1,069 yards on first down. Second down, Georgia, 3.54 per carry on second down, 411 yards rushing. Texas, 5.14 per carry on second down, 833 yards. Yards allowed rushing. First down, Georgia allows 3.98 per carry on first down. 3.98 per carry on first down. Opponents have run for 781 on first down against the Bulldogs. 4.24 on second down. They've run for 593. Texas allows 3.23 on first down per carry on the season. That's rushing yards allowed on first down. On second down, Texas allows opponents to rush for 3.45 yards per carry on second down this season. So if they're going to get in those spots, that's how they're going to do it. Opponents have rushed for 611 on first down, 472 on second down versus this Texas defense. So it feels like Texas has been just a little bit better there collectively, first and second down against the run and running the football. And obviously setting up third and manageables is going to be massive for both of these teams. If there's a player on Georgia's offense not named Carson Beck that needs to be big for Georgia to win this game, Greg, who would you say that player is?
Oscar Delp. I think he is very important, not just in kind of helping secure the edge, but I also think he can make some plays against Texas's linebackers. Like I think there can be plays. I think there's some plays to be made there. I would also say Arian Smith. Those are the two that I think have to be really big in this game. And then if there's a third, it would be Nate Frazier. I think Nate Frazier is their best running back. I think he's their most capable weapon. I just don't know how much I trust him. I've seen him put the ball on the deck too many times. He's been in and out of the doghouse this year with fumbles and taking some risks and things like that. I also don't think he's great in protection. So he would be a little bit of a liability in some aspects of the game, but I also know that he's really capable with the ball in his hands from time to time. He's got a lot of juice. So I'd love to get him involved. I would love to know that I could trust him when he is out there on the field.
Oscar Delp, 18 catches, 207 yards on the season. Damien, if I asked you the same question, just a guy offensively outside of Carson Beck that has to be successful in this game, who would that player be?
I would say Arian Smith. I think that for him, one, he's got the speed, and kind of to Greg's point, the catch and run situations, he's just got to be able to just be that big play receiver. I know his size isn't the biggest, but his speed is what carries him. And if Carson Beck can find a way to just get him the ball in space and just let him do his thing, he's also got to be able to get open as well. But he would be the most important position, most important player outside of Carson Beck.
John, do you have somebody sticks out for you outside of Beck?
Yeah, Peyton Woodring, the kicker.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
I'd say this because
do we consider him a part of the offense?
I mean, he scores points.
Do we consider him a part of the team?
That no,
barely.
But he's 17 of 19. He hasn't missed an extra point. But in a game like this, where I could see it being a lot like Georgia Tech going against them, and not only low scoring, but they get in the red zone and can't get touchdowns. They miss a field goal or two. All of a sudden, that's the game. Now, this guy hasn't done that yet. But how many times have we seen that the guy that's basically automatic all year all of a sudden gets the yips at the very, very end?
Okay.
I want to hate it, but I just can't hate it. I really want to. I just want everyone, let the record be known that I really hate this. I really hate that I like this. I think he actually makes some good points. I think that could be an impactful aspect of it because Texas is great defensively. Might have to settle for some field goals. And from a morale standpoint, in the championship setting, to walk off the field with 3 points when you could only get to the 35-yard line, that's a pretty good feeling. Knowing that when you get to the 35, you got points, that's a really good feeling. So I think that could be impactful. I don't hate the call.
Okay.
I do, but I don't.
Right. It's good and bad. We asked you that question about Georgia. I want to ask that question about Texas on the other side. Before we do that, Greg, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's is great. Actually, in there yesterday. Went in, took advantage of their incredible Christmas sale. And my wife met me up there. I said I was going to Bromberg. She said, let's go. She couldn't get there fast enough. And it was a great thing for us because she was able to put together a wish list at Bromberg. So I know now, not just for this upcoming holiday, but for the next 10 holidays, I know exactly some of the things that she's wanting. And you can make it easy on your loved ones if you just go over to Bromberg's, put together a wish list. I put a few things on the wish list as well. Not expecting to receive any of them, but it was worth a try. So the expert sales staff, they'll help you select some incredible pieces from a curated collection that your family will keep and treasure and appreciate. So pick out a few things today and create your wish list in the Mountain Brook Village store, or you can go to the Summit. You can also always shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, we'll give you more on the SEC championship game. Go to the Texas offense next right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. A little college football coaching news. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 8:50 Friday, December 6th, right here on Jocks 94.5. UCLA's fired offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, and now focusing in on Indiana quarterback coach, co-offensive coordinator Tino Sinceri. Looks like Utah's going to hire New Mexico offensive coordinator Jason Beck as well. That New Mexico offense is pretty good this year. And I do want to get into this North Carolina coaching search, G-Mac, because you mentioned John Summerall, a little bit of a part of it earlier. And Bill Belichick interviewed for this job via Zoom, but did actually interview for this job. And more reports circling this morning that he may be interested in coaching next year, and college football actually might be a reality for him.
What I think is hilarious is they're replacing a 73-year-old with potentially a 72-year-old.
I don't think that Belichick is a real candidate, but yeah, if that were to go that way, okay, if you say so. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know. That North Carolina search feels a little bit odd right now, and I think that the support is in different places and heading in different directions and pulling different directions, and that's probably going to make that hire a little bit complicated. All right, we mentioned the Georgia offense coming up for the SEC championship game tomorrow. You will get that game, 3 o'clock on ABC, number 5 Georgia versus number 2 Texas from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. The Texas offense, if it's not Quinn Ewers, I feel like this might be an easy answer for a lot of folks, but who does it have to be, Greg, that has a big game, makes big plays in order for Texas to grab a Southeastern Conference championship?
Man, it's honestly a tough one for me because there's so many different guys. That's what I like about Texas a lot this year, is there's so many different people that have and can take over the game. That's what I think is so difficult about defending them. I mean, they have a bunch of different wide receivers. They have a bunch of different tight ends and weapons. If I had to pick one, I think because it's going to be really important to run the football, I'm going to go Trey Wisner. But I'm not 1,000% sure it won't be one of the wide receivers. I don't know which one. If I were to guess, probably Matthew Golden, but I don't know that for certain. So Wisner 1, Golden 2. How do you feel?
Yeah, it feels kind of like
calling it. How do you feel about it?
Feels kind of like a take your pick on those. I'm going to give you a totally random one here.
Oh gosh! Don't you dare say left tackle. Left guard. Don't you dare say left tackle.
Center. I would give you that whole group. Jake Majors, no, he does a good job though, and I'm not going to say that it's going to be him. This is actually a little bit more out in left field, I think, than even any of those. And you said take over the. I'm not going John Saber. No, you said take over the game, and that's, I'm not saying take over the game, but need big plays from in order to win. I'm going to go Arch Manning.
What?
Because I think Arch Manning is going to have a package, and I think they're going to use his legs. I think they want Georgia to be prepared for it.
You're worse than Saber.
I think they want Georgia to at least have to line up against it and think about it. If you go back to their 2 losses, Jackson Dart, 8 carries, 50 yards when they played earlier this year. You also go back to the Alabama game. Everybody focuses in on Ryan Williams, and why wouldn't they? He was exceptional in that game. Jalen Milroe ran for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. So in the 2 losses, quarterbacks have had some success running the football. Now, I think maybe that helps open up some throws down the field, and maybe it's an Arch Manning package where he does let one rip down the field, and it's a one-on-one. Texas can take advantage of it and get a big play that way. But guy that has to make a couple of plays, I'm going to go Arch Manning, Texas quarterback, situationally, not as the full-time guy.
I don't hate it. I just think it's a little trendy. I'm not saying that.
Who else has said that? Where else does that come from? I need to know.
Oh my God! You take your pick. Every one of the recruiting nerds is all in on. Oh, this is gonna be Arch Manning's game. Watch. Why? Oh, they had 3 plays in his package last week. It's been a very popular take this week, according to multiple podcasts that I listened to, including your good friend Josh Pate. So I am a little concerned about how trendy that is. I do think he could be used from a decoy standpoint, but I also, like you, kind of acknowledge that there are holes in this Georgia defense. Now, Jalen made his plays on the perimeter. He did hit him up inside a few times, but a lot of his plays were made on the perimeter. But Haynes King just took it right to him.
Yeah.
I don't think Arch Manning is quite the type that's going to put his body on the line the same way Haynes King was. But then again, maybe he is. Maybe he is that guy. So I would be surprised if he didn't have a role, but I also feel like Georgia is going to be more than equipped after last week's performance to neutralize his impact on the game.
And we talked about that a little bit earlier when you were having some flight issues, just that some of the elongated plays that Texas offers, I think need to be tightened up a little bit. That's because like what you said about Georgia Tech, you have to throw in that visual deception, but then hit it quick after that. Can't play fake, spin around, wait, look, and then try to deliver the football. It has to happen fast, in my opinion, if Texas is going to be successful with it. I don't think Arch minds taking hits. I mean, we talked to him about it earlier this year, and he told us how his grandfather calls him before every game. It's like, hey, kid, run out of bounds. Like, slide. Save the body. And,
well, Granddad, did you run out of bounds?
And that's what I asked him. I said, do you ask Archie if he ever ran out? Like, he never ran out of bounds. And he's like, yeah, that's the point. He can barely move around. So, like, trying to conserve the body there a little bit. And he's like, I guess he's right, because he is a little bit beat up. More conference championship game talk in our top 3 next hour. All right, still coming up for you this hour. Top 3 we'll get to here in just a moment. Preview the conference championship games. Give you our picks for those one last time. Max Ball this hour. Super Sofa game of the weekend. And bad box score of the day. Had an all-timer yesterday.
Oh, we did.
18 points in a game. Can that be top today? We'll see. Have to stick around to find out. Listen on 9jocksfm.com. Watch us live on YouTube every morning. search JOX. You can find us there. If you're heading down towards Montgomery, Sports Radio 740, always appreciate the fine folks listening there. North Alabama, you can listen 7:30 a.m., 103.9 FM, The Ump. Always easy to catch us. And you can watch the show back on YouTube. You can go find the podcast at jocksfm.com if you missed anything, including us discussing a home that was moved via barge across a lake today. The unthinkable happens right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Might not be unthinkable to keep the rodents out of your home. Wayne's has a way to do that, whether it's chipmunks, mice, birds, possum, raccoon, hawks trying to come into your house. Wayne's can help. They have wildlife removal services if they're already there, and they have wildlife prevention services to make sure that this doesn't happen again, GMAC. Just one of the fine services that Wayne's offers all of our listeners.
Yeah, watch out for the hawks. They do have a tendency to try to bed in your attic. Certainly wouldn't want them, wouldn't want bats, wouldn't want mice, wouldn't want any wildlife in my house, not only because it's detrimental to my home, but it's also potentially detrimental to our health inside the house. Don't want diseases and nasty stuff coming in because they're trying to get out of the cold just like us. So call them today for their wildlife prevention services. You'll be glad that you did. You can also ask them about their other services that they provide around our home. We've had a great experience. I know you'll have a great experience as well. So call them today, 866-WAYNES-1. That's 866-WAYNES-1, and visit callwaynes.com and let Waynes continue to create your happy place.
Hey, just throwing it out there quickly. I mean, because you mentioned it. Speaking of the Hawks, they've won 5 in a row. They've got the Lake Show in Atlanta tonight.
Oh.
May or may not be attending that game.
The Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah, I know.
I thought we were going Mighty Ducks. Like I saw the one.
I'm way more familiar
Hawks
with Mighty Ducks.
won 5 in a row.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Didn't know.
People here love Atlanta sports, right?
They love the
That's what I was
Braves.
told.
Or I think they
So
love
you
the
mean
Braves.
Fulton County? Oh, okay.
They love the Braves in September.
Okay.
That's as far as they go normally. Yeah.
Got him.
I'm just saying, there's only one team with a longer win streak in the NBA right now. It'd be the Dallas Mavericks, won 6 in a row. So,
Okay.
Oops.
all right.
Sorry.
We get to it each and every morning, sometimes sports, not always. It's our top 3. Damian, what's on tap with our top 3 today?
Y'all know how we usually do it on Fridays, but it's championship weekend because really and truly, everybody's on upset alert.
Are they?
They are. Every single one of these teams. I mean, the biggest point spread we have is 6, and that's Marshall versus Louisiana. So, who are the top 3 most important players in conference championship weekend this
John,
weekend?
who's your kicker again? I don't know his name, but I'm throwing
It's
him out there.
Hayden Woodring, Chittering.
Number 3 for me, Ashton Jeanty, Boise State. He is just such a one-man wrecking crew. If he does not find a way to get going, I don't think Boise can or will win that football game. He is that critical to what they do. And if they're going to find a way to get that win, then I think that he is going to be massive. I'm going to say Carson Beck for Georgia because it's not a team that can turn and hand the ball off and just run the football anymore. And he's been great as of late, not turning the football over. Got to his checkdowns last week, played within the system. If he does that, Georgia has a chance to get an SEC title and get a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. So I think he is going to be massive as well. There's so many other guys that I feel like that I could go to in these spots. But I'm going to go with something that Stanford Steve brought up a little bit earlier in the show. And one that I don't think a lot of people would probably go to, Xavier Guillory, wide receiver, Arizona State, 17 catches, 291 yards on the season. Somebody else has got to pick up the slack with Jordan Tyson being out. He's their next leading receiver at wide receiver, not just receiver, because Scadaboo would be your next leading receiver with 35 grabs. But I'm going to go Xavier Guillory, Arizona State, and it's not going to be 10, 12, 15 targets, but somebody's got to be there for some play action and a shot or two down the field. Maybe he'll be that guy.
Don't hate it. I think there's a lot to like actually about this offense. And while I honestly don't know, I really don't know at this point who's going to step up, but I think he's got as good a chance as any. I'll go a little off the radar. I'll go with Parker Navarro, quarterback of Ohio. Really kind of a one-man show, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, the guy's got to run the ball super effectively. He's rushed for nearly 900 yards this year. And Ohio has not won a MAC championship since 1968. So it's been a really long time. They're 0-5 in conference championship games, and their entire offense really runs through him. And while Miami, Ohio, they've been a bit of a juggernaut. They've won potentially back-to-back. If they win back-to-back this year, they will be the first MAC team to win back-to-back in over 12 years. So it's been a while, but I think Ohio might have the recipe, and it's going to be because of Parker Navarro. Another good option. I'm trying to find a couple that are a little off the grid. I'll go with SMU running back Brashard Smith. A lot of people want to talk about the quarterback, and Kevin Jennings has been really good. He's gamer, just makes plays, but Brashard Smith is really good as a wide receiver, pass catcher out of the backfield, and he's kind of a slicer and dicer between the tackles as well, so really like him. And then finally, let's go with Haj Malik Williams, quarterback of UNLV. I mean, he played pretty well the last time against Boise State, and he's going to have to do it again. They're going to have to run the ball really effectively. Their defense is going to have to play great as well. But Haj Malik Williams, I think they have the personnel to be able to get the job done. So those would be the three I go with.
John?
Number 3 for me is Genty. He's not the entire Boise offense, but he's dang near close of it. And if he's not able to get going, they're going to be in trouble. Number 2 is Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas. He's not only their leading tackler, he's their leading tackler for loss. So if they're going to be able to get any kind of pressure on Carson Beck or to kind of get them out of rhythm, it's probably going to be him. He's going to be the one that should be causing the kind of ruckus. And number 1, it's Tyler Warren, Penn State. He's, like Genty, not their entire offense, but he's a better version of their Taysom Hill because he's kind of been their go-to guy. And, yeah, I think he only had, 40-some-odd rushing, I'd say only, but only 40 yards rushing in the Ohio State game. But they're very opportune times. And he's been someone that Aller has been relying on a lot, especially in big games like this. So if Oregon can find a way to kind of limit him, they should be able to do that. If not, if they don't, I mean, I'm sure they'll account for him. But if they barely account for him, he may be able to run wild on him.
I got you. Greg, cover your ears. My number 3, Bryson Daly, quarterback for Army when they match up with Tulane tonight.
It's a good one, though.
I'm telling you, man, he's been everything. It's just the way they run their offense. What Bryson Daly does, he ain't going to be asked to throw the ball 40 times a game, but he may run that thing 40 times. And I think for the engine that is Army, he is definitely that guy. Number 2 for me, I've got Dylan Gabriel, quarterback at Oregon against Penn State. As long as he stays composed, he continues to do what he's been able to do, I think Oregon should be fine there. Number 1, I think it's Cam Scatterbo, running back from Arizona State. He's going to get his touches. He is going to get his touches, and I think that for what Arizona State has done there with Kenny Dillingham, he's going to be the stir that the straw that stirs the camel's drink.
I'm sorry.
The straw that stirs the drink.
Stay hot.
My fault.
But where do camels have to do with that?
I was thinking the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, okay.
My fault.
Well, there's the same straw. I feel like it'd break the glass also.
It's going to be long.
If it can break the camel's back, it's definitely going to break the glass.
It ain't one of them paper
Stirring the
straws, though,
drink.
right? Yeah. That's a busy straw.
We got problems.
Whew.
My fault, dog.
Okay.
Oh.
That's your top 3 for the day. Yeah, that's a lot. Straw, a lot of action for the straw here on the show this morning. GMAC, I know that Backyard of Interest has helped you guys out with the basketball goal. We've got one. Son actually said we need to get it to 8 feet yesterday so he can actually practice on where it's going to be when he starts playing here this winter. So was glad to see him not just want to try to dunk all the time. But Backyard Adventures, they're set up right there at Cahaba Valley Road. You go check out what they have. The playgrounds are put together. The basketball goals are up, and they're going to be able to do it all for you. I actually had a buddy of mine at my son's basketball practice said, hey, Jeff and the guys came out and installed our basketball goal for us, did a great job. We really appreciate you hooking us up with them. Go see what they can do for you. They got the playground in our backyard and the basketball goal. And GMAC, I know you guys have loved what Backyard Adventures did for you.
Yeah, they've been great. I really, really enjoy the backyard adventure aspect of what they've provided our family, and I love the professionalism. They've come out, they've taken care of business. It's been great. I know you guys will have a similar experience that I had. It's really just first-class group. basketball goal has been a great investment. I know it's investment that will continue to pay off for many, many years to come. So go and check them out today off Cahaba Valley Road, or you can go online at backyardalabama.com.
All right, so championship weekend, we've been focusing in on Georgia and Texas. Greg, we asked a question a little earlier in the show if some of the luster is off of this game. It feels like just the buzz is not the same. And I realize that here, no Alabama, no Auburn in it. That's a little bit different, and folks maybe not as excited because of that. Do you think the fact that it feels like both these teams are just in the playoff regardless is taking a little bit away from the importance or the interest in it?
Yes, I think that absolutely is. And it's only going to get worse, I think. And it's not really anything you can do about it. I mean, with an expanded playoff, the value and the importance of a conference championship in the eyes of many is not as important. I still think it matters. I still care about it, but I'm not sure everyone else does. I'm not sure it has the effect that it once had. So unfortunately, it's just kind of the way it is, and it's just part of where we've now gone in the sport in favor of the playoff. We have kind of evolved beyond some of the things that have been traditionally really important. And so such is life, and so be it. So I think there's other conference championship games that are really important. I just don't know if the SEC has as much stake, even though it'll command the biggest number because it's got two gigantic brands in it. I'm not sure it's going to attract the hardcore with the same level of intensity as it has in the past.
Yeah, I think that's one that has a chance to be I think it's going to be a great game, and it should be massive. Georgia has been the most dominant team in college football the last few years. Texas, one of the biggest brands in college football, in the playoff a year ago, first year in the SEC. It feels like it should be huge, and maybe when I get over there and maybe when I get outside of our bubble here in Birmingham, it'll feel bigger. It'll look bigger, like more people are paying attention to it. I just feel like a little part of this has been taken away, and I can't really put my finger on it. I've also heard people talking about Texas winning the SEC in year one. And I just feel like this is a little bit different, Greg, because of the time that they had to prepare, because Sark knew what was coming based on his experience coaching in the league recently. Do you view this as any sort of a dent in the Southeastern Conference that Texas would be able to come in and win the SEC championship year one?
Well, it'd be one thing if Texas was just a run-of-the-mill program in the Big 12 last year. Like, they dominated the Big 12 last year. So, like, people have made that argument a couple different times. But Texas, last I checked, they won the Big 12. It's not like Texas was a middle-of-the-road program in the Big 12, and now all of a sudden they get to the SEC, they become great. I mean, no, this was a couple years in the making, and they've been peaking at the right time. I also think it speaks to the quality of the SEC in general. I think the SEC is down this year as far as the highest levels of execution and the highest levels of play. It doesn't mean that it's not still great. It doesn't mean it's not still the best. It might very well be, and it might prove itself to be here over the next month and a half. But I don't think it's as good as it's been more recently as far as depth and quality and consistency and just overall buy-in for some teams. I mean, for Oklahoma to be as bad as they are is really inexcusable. For Alabama's ebbs and flows and swings and peaks and valleys is kind of hard to wrap your head around. Same can be said with Georgia. I mean, this is a team that has played with their food multiple times and has looked great on some days and really bad on other days. So I think the inconsistencies, like for me, I love consistency. I love knowing what to expect. And I don't feel like there's many teams right now in the league where I know what I'm going to get week in and week out.
Per inconsistency, that may be a big portion of why Georgia wins or loses this game. And it also goes back to Oscar Delp, only 18 catches, but maybe him being a reliable target and why that might be important for Georgia in this game. I'm going to tell you about some of those inconsistencies and tell you about exactly why they could continue to hurt Georgia in this SEC championship game next, right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Friday, December 6th, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9:18 a.m. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Tonight, 6 p.m., CBS Sports Network, Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State. That's a 32-degree kickoff game at Amherst Stadium in Jacksonville. UNLV Boise tonight, 7 p.m. on Fox. Ashton Jeanty, 312 carries, 2,288 yards, 28 touchdowns this season. Boise won the first one 29-24 on October the 26th. Also, Western Kentucky knocked off Jacksonville State a week ago. But both of those rematches coming up tonight. 7 p.m. on ABC tonight, Tulane and Army. Tulane at 9-3, Army at 9-1. Army's going to get that game at home, and that'll be a big advantage there. We talked about inconsistencies for this SEC championship game, and one thing from the Georgia perspective, Greg, that you brought up that could potentially continue to be an issue are drops. Per Sports Info Solutions, Georgia has 36 drops this season. Would you like to take a guess at how many teams have more on the year in college football? Not a single one. Greg's right.
Oof.
Georgia leads the nation in drops. And you brought up Oscar Delp as maybe a very important player, one of the key players for this Georgia offense, in that consistency is going to need something. This is a game, Greg, that you can't drop an 8-yard out on 3rd and 5 and not be able to convert. You know, you can't drop a waggle on 3rd and 6. It looks like it's going to go for a first down, and all of a sudden, you know, you don't convert. You got to punt the football away. Those are going to be big moments in this game, and Georgia's going to have to find some reliable receivers to be able to make those plays, considering the inconsistency that has been there with that core group of receivers this year.
I think that's what's most troubling about this group is that they have talent, they have ability, but I just don't understand why the inconsistencies with just catching the football. I mean, they are inconsistent not just in catching the football, their depths, their routes, how quickly they get in and out, how they stem up the receivers, how they avoid contact at the second level. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really frustrating about watching this group, but none more than what they do from a drop standpoint. It's just brutal, absolutely brutal.
And I don't believe, I mean, I don't have the numbers there, but I don't think Delp has had as much of an issue with that. I think he and Lawson Lucky have been pretty solid as far as not having drop issues this year.
I can't recall off the top of my head how many times I've seen Lawson Lucky or Oscar Delp drop a pass. I can't speak to whether or not they have one. They might. Maybe they had one against UMass. I didn't watch that game. But I don't think that they have any drops. I can look it up real quick if you'd like.
Just say you don't like ball if you're not grinding on the UMass tape. It's okay. Just go ahead and admit it.
I did watch their defense against UMass. I saw them get gashed for about 220.
Whoa.
So other than that, I did watch the defense because that felt like the biggest storyline. Let me look and see if Delp has any drops this year. Delp has 2 drops, and Lucky has 2 drops. So between the two of them, 4 drops.
So not probably near as bad as some of the other targets inside that Georgia offense.
Dominic Lovick, 9. Arian Smith, 8.
Ooh.
Dylan Bell, 7.
So your wide receivers are almost good for a drop a game, essentially. And like that just can't – you can't have that. And not in
How
this
about
type
2
of
a
game.
game amongst your wideouts? 24, they've played 12.
Well, I just mean individually. Yeah. So you gotta find a way to work around that, and those receptions or drops going to be massive in this game. Georgia defensively last time, we know Jalen Walker was huge with what he was able to do and how he was able to change things. Is he the key part of why Georgia can or cannot have success in this game on that side of the football again?
I think he has a chance to be a big part of it. I don't know how you feel about it. Like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see just how Georgia tries to attack them. So I think like quick passing game, line to scrimmage stuff, sideline to sideline, quick gash plays, got some pick routes. I think they know they probably have to win a couple one-on-ones on the outside. I'm just not 100% sure they can do it. I just don't know who's the guy that's going to be able to do that for them. So do you have a feel for it?
No, I feel like that's where I'm interested in watching the Georgia defense in this game and how they try to pressure. I mean, how far down your list of corner crashes would have been, going into this last game of impact plays, impact players? Maybe corners taking the ball away, but not pressuring or getting the ball out against the quarterback. I don't think I would have had that on my card until we got way down the list. So I'm interested to see if it's pressure up the middle. Could it be a Smile Munden there? Could it be maybe inside with what they try to do with a couple of different players there, moving them around and offering pressure in different places, because they got the Texas offense to try and protect in ways that were advantageous for them last time. Maybe Texas goes a different route in how they manage their protections this time, tries to get the ball out a little bit more quickly, tries to go more screen game. Not really sure. But that's the part that I'm sort of interested in. I mean, could it be – I don't think Malachi Starks had a great game in this one last time around. And maybe hasn't played up to his standard that we thought we were going to get all season. Could he be somebody who maybe shows up and is the impact player for Georgia in this game? There are so many options, and I think Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart are going to switch some things up to where they don't want anybody to know who that impact player is going to be heading into this game against Texas.
Yeah, I think one thing about Malachi Starks, I think he's a really talented kid. I'm having a hard time understanding. I don't see him as like the second coming of, Ed Reed. There's been a few times in this season when he has not played great football. But I do think that this would be a great opportunity for him to kind of reassert himself as one of the top football players, on the defensive side in the SEC. Like, this is a game that he's going to have to do an awful lot of, and I don't know at this point, I'm not sure how you feel about it. I don't know at this point if he would be a guy to be wanting to attack, but I do think he's a guy that can be fooled from time to time. So it'd be worth watching.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. All right, on the Texas side of things, if we were to go with the player that we think has the bigger game, kind of steps out for this Texas defense, I kind of leaned Trey Moore a little bit earlier in the week, just because I think when on Read and React, when we took our MVPs if this team wins, I actually went 2 defensive players and I went Jalen Walker. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think he may be more of a decoy in this game for Georgia than the guy who makes the impact. But I took Trey Moore from Texas because we've seen those Georgia tackles. We know that they've had issues in pass protection. And even though Beck has decent escapability, he's also stood in the pocket and taken some hits at times. I think they have enough up the middle with Alfred Collins, with Bill Norton, with Lowell, with different players inside, Vernon Broughton, that they can sort of stuff things up there with those edge defenders to be able to get those one-on-ones. Now, they got to win first and second down like we talked about. But Trey Moore, with a little bit of juice off the edge, G-Mac, the guy that I picked to be sort of that impact player for the Texas defense.
Yeah, I think Trey Moore's got a chance to have an impact for sure. But I still like a little bit more his speed's good. I think Colin Simmons is obviously a big weapon here. I think Barron Sorrell, I love Barron Sorrell. I think he's a really solid football player. I think he's got a chance to be big. And then I think both corners just need to do a good job of tackling for Texas as well. Like, they got to do a good job tackling. Makuba coming over is someone that I'd be interested in seeing how he handles things. I do think he's been somewhat of a liability in coverage from time to time. So we'll see if he gets attacked at any point as well.
Yeah, it's that's the other thing with the Texas defense. It feels like there are multiple players that could stand out and sort of be that guy. Like Anthony Hill Jr., I think easily could have an MVP type game because he'll be off the ball, sideline to sideline. They can line him up off the edge. They can blitz him up the middle. I mean, he's just a playmaker, and he makes plays all over the place. And if they maybe go a little bit more to, hey, cover this O-line up, let him run and make plays, and he's able to do that, then he could be somebody that falls into that category. Colin Simmons, a true freshman off the edge. I mean, he's got the length to be a problem. They let him attack. They line him up different places. But maybe one of those sort of unheralded MVPs, I like your choice of Barron Sorrell. I don't see him getting 3 sacks. I don't see him getting 4 TFLs. But if you're talking about okay, so let's go to what you said about Oscar Delp. Barron Sorrell, one of those guys physically that can hold his ground. He holds Delp. He holds Lawson Lucky up at the line of scrimmage enough times to where they're not able to get into those routes or the timing's off. That allows for a sack to take place, or sort of takes on a double team on the edge and allows an Anthony Hill Jr. to come over and make a play. I could see Barron Sorrell having more of that impact on this game than the one where everybody looks at the box score or everybody comes away with, man, 88 was the one that played better than anybody else on that field.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting too, because with Barron Sorrell, he can play inside now. I don't think he's going to be lined up inside, but he's big enough, I think, to play inside. Would you agree?
Yes, they move him down in there.
Some, but not as much. I think in this game, this could be a spot where he lives there quite a bit. Like if I'm them, I would like to match him up as often as I can against Tate Ratledge. Like Tate Ratledge still, to me, I know that things have progressed slightly, but I haven't been overly impressed with what they've done from a protection standpoint. I know we got speed on the edge, but if I can move Sorrell inside over Ratledge, that would be something that I would probably try to enforce. I think it can be done, to be honest with you. But what I don't believe is that Tate Ratledge is at 100%, and I really don't believe that either guard is equipped to handle a dynamic rush man on the inside. So who's the interior guy that can handle it?
No, it's a fair question. And, I mean, if we're going to go with an interior guy from Texas, I'm going to go Vernon Broughton based on what he did to A&M alone last week. Now, Georgia fans have laughed at me for saying this, but I think Bill Norton could be an impact guy because, they say he couldn't get on the field 3 or 4 years ago, which I could probably give you a lot of NFL players that wouldn't have been on the field with that defense that was there and the guys that they had. I think Ethan Burke off the edge has good length to be able to knock a couple balls down, be able to cause some problems, get in the backfield, do some different things. The interior guys have been an issue all year. Alfred Collins he's same deal. He's not going to be a guy with the stat box being stuffed, but he's going to take on double teams and he's going to dent the pocket a little bit and he's going to cause problems in other ways. And I think what we're saying here is more collectively that front seven has to be as dominant as we think we can if Texas is going to win this game. It's not just going to be the secondary to go out and win this game for Texas.
No, front seven. It's the SEC. It's the SEC championship. If you think this game's not going to be decided at the line of scrimmage, you're crazy. I don't care how good the receivers and the quarterbacks have become in this league. That's great. It's still a line of scrimmage game. And it's Texas and it's Georgia, two teams that are built in a more traditional way. I still think that you're going to have guys that can take over the game up front defensively. You're going to have guys that play great. And if they don't, they'll lose. And that goes for both sides. If Texas's front seven doesn't show up, they'll lose. If Georgia doesn't, they'll get gashed. And guess what? Texas is a whole lot more capable than Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech pushed them around. So that would be concerning for me if I were Georgia going into this game.
Absolutely. All right, we'll continue talking not only SEC championship game. We'll give you our picks for that one on the other side. We'll pick the rest of the games, and then we'll roll into bad box scores, plural, of the game. We're teetering on all-timer staff for bad box score of the day, a maybe. I know Greg hates that, but we'll try to get to it and let you know if that's what it is. But I think it's going to be one that's a lot closer than maybe people are thinking. Your CBD store wants to get you closer to feeling your best. They have multiple ways to do it. Weight loss? Well, the Trim by SunMed is on shelves now at the largest brick-and-mortar CBD retailer on planet Earth. If it's arthritis, anxiety for you or your pet, they have options for that. What about skincare? For you and your pet, they have different options come in, whether it's nighttime, daytime skincare products that can have you looking your best at your CBD store, which is going to have you feeling your best. 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleveland, Trustful just off 459. Go to your CBD store where good health hits home now and see what they can do for you. All right, we're picking championship game matchups next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, Max Ball Friday. We're getting into these championship games. Going to pick these for you. SEC championship game has sort of been on the front of our minds here the last couple of segments. 9:35 a.m. Friday, December 6th. So let's go ahead and pick it and give you who we think gets it. I'm doing the MegaCast, so I don't know. Is that against the rules when you're doing MegaCast to be able to pick the game, see what happens? I'll just say this. Carson,
I think it's dangerous.
Okay, I won't do it then. I will. I'll just say this. I think Georgia.
Have you been in any meetings?
Not with coaches, no.
So you're good then.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
But
I don't want to even have that be an issue.
You're better to be safe than sorry.
I'll just say this.
You can write it down and we'll pull it up Monday.
Georgia has to tackle in a similar fashion than they did the first time around. Whether it's Wisner, Blue, whether it's the receivers on the perimeter, the quick high percentage throws and handoffs. They did an excellent job of making one-on-one plays on the perimeter. That has to happen again. And then up front, we talked about it, that front seven has to be really good. Maybe not overly dominant like the Georgia front was against Texas last time around, but they've got to get pressure. They've got to take the runaway. And watch the tight ends. Greg brought up Delp. I thought that Mike Bobo did an excellent job of hiding and sort of disguising and using the tight ends in different ways against Georgia Tech. Delays, waggles, multiple tight end formations, delayed routes. I think they have to do something similar again against Texas to kind of steal some yards through the air. And then finally, Carson Beck can't turn it over. I think if he turns it over, maybe even just once, that might be too many for Georgia to find a way to win this game. So that's where I would go with kind of how this thing plays out. GMAC, who wins Georgia and Texas for the SEC championship?
Texas wins. They're the more complete football team, and I know it's going to be a huge surprise, massive shock. People pointing to, well, this team, that team, they beat them last time. That was at home. How could they possibly beat them this time? Because Texas is better. Texas is a better football team. It doesn't mean that they're going to win. It just means they're a better football team. And the last time, the better football team didn't win. Guess what? That's what happens sometimes. The best team doesn't always win. Oklahoma's not a better football team than Bama, but they won. New Mexico State wasn't a better team than Auburn last year, but they won. Things like that happen.
They actually might have been.
I don't think. Cal's not a better football team than Auburn, and they won. That's the way things go. And Kentucky's not better than Ole Miss. It happens all the time. So Georgia might very well win this game, but they're not as good. And I think that if Texas plays their game and plays smart, comfortable, reliable football and don't turn it over like they did last time and stop giving the short field, they'll be in good shape.
All right, Damian, SEC championship game, which direction you going?
I think Georgia gets it. I think they lean into their physicality. I'm not going to say they catch Texas slipping, but I just think that what happened in Austin meant to happen, and they're going to show it in their backyard in Atlanta. Give me Georgia.
Okay. John, SEC championship game, which direction you heading?
I think Texas is going to put up a very good fight, but I think in the end, Georgia gets it.
Okay. Let's go to that Mountain West championship game coming up tonight, Greg. You had some thoughts on it a little bit earlier in the show. UNLV leads the Mountain West in rushing yards per game allowed and opponent yards per rush this season. Obviously going to need that against Ashton Genty, 2,288 rushing yards, but it does feel like it's all him, at least the majority of it. And if you can find a way to neutralize him, you should be able to have some success. I think there's a massive advantage for Boise also being in this spot. These two teams have played this year. These two teams played in the Mountain West championship game last year. Boise won that one 44-20. So they've had recent success against this team. Boise playing in the Mountain West championship game for the 8th time. That's the most by any school. I'm just going to keep it simple for you guys. I think being on the blue turf is too much. And I think the conditions also going to help Boise a little bit in this game. I'm going to take the Broncos. Even though I actually think, like Greg said, in similar fashion to the SEC championship game, I think UNLV might be the better team. But I think with everything involved in how this one's going to be played, where it's going to be played, I think Boise finds a way to win. GMAC, where are you going?
I'm taking UNLV. I think they're more complete. I think their defense will bottle up Genty. Last time around, averaged less than 4 yards a carry. His longest carry in the game was 16 yards. That was a season low. I think they'll do an even better job this time of kind of keeping things in check. And last time around, they were able to take some of the pressure off the running game by hitting a couple passes off play action. And Madsen was really good last time around. And I don't think they're going to be as good this time around. So while I am pretty encouraged by what I've seen from Boise and their ability to continue to feed Ashton Genty, that's great. But man alive, I just think it's going to be a little bit dicey.
Okay.
A little dicey to be able to kind of keep that thing going. Genty's come back to earth a little bit, and I think it comes back in a big way, and they pull off a big upset.
How's Malik Williams that you mentioned? 4 games with 150 pass yards and 100 rush yards this season. That is second in the country. New Mexico's Devin Dampier has more. So now you see why their offensive coordinator most likely heading off to Utah. Damian, Mountain West Championship game tonight. Which way you going?
I'm going Boise State to the reasons that you said too. They're at home. I think Ashton Genty he explodes. Give me Boise State.
All right, John.
I'm going UNLV for the reasons Greg said. I just think Barry Odom's not. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. I think they find a way to stop him.
Listen, Greg and I debated Barry Odom as Coach of the Year earlier in the week when we talked about that. I feel like he should be in the mix for that. I don't feel like there's any reason that you shouldn't vote for him other than just there's another candidate that you like a little bit more because there's 4 or 5 that seem like they could all take that. All right, Big Ten championship game. Massive matchup. We spent a lot of time breaking it down. Oregon, Penn State. I'm going to keep it simple like I did with Boise and the conditions and where this game's being played. I'm just going to go the history of James Franklin. Prove it to me. We have seen him in this spot. We have seen him in similar spots, and it never really seems to go well. Because of that, GMAC, I'm simply just going to go with Oregon in this game. As you also stated earlier in the show, I think they're probably the better football team, the more complete football team. But I think that offense is probably – we're going to be talking here Monday about how that offense tried to get cute again. It maybe outthought themselves, outcoached themselves, and whether or not it's ultimately the difference, I think it will work against Penn State. And I think Oregon stays undefeated and heads into the college football playoff as an undefeated Big Ten champ.
Yeah, I like Oregon here. I think it's actually going to be a little higher scoring. I think Oregon will be able to move the ball. I also think Penn State's going to have some opportunities to move the ball. So I lean towards it being a little higher scoring game, and I lean towards Oregon kind of pulling away 14 points or so there in the second half of the football game.
All right. By the way, your worst win percentage versus AP top 5 teams all time, James Franklin would be third at 1-16.
Ooh.
Would you like to take a guess at who is the second worst all time against AP top 5 opponents?
Kiffin?
Bill Mallory would be number 1 at 0-15. He didn't win a
Billy?
single one.
Billy Mal.
Billy Mouse?
Old Billy. And this is a minimum 15 games coached, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Franklin 1-13 at Penn State, 1-16 all time. That's a .059 winning percentage.
Is
it a winning percentage, by the way, when it's .059? I think it's just a percentage. It's just a percentage.
He has a
Feels like
percent
it.
of a win.
It's
Yes.
just a percentage at
Yes.
that
So
point.
who's number 2? I'm going to Jimbo Fisher.
No.
Dan
He had all
Mullen.
those wins against Alabama.
Dan Mullen.
No. That's a great guess, though.
Yeah.
Bobby
I don't know
Johnson.
if he got 15 against top 5 teams. Close, but I bet he doesn't have 15. So you have to have
Bobby
you have to have
Johnson.
some tenure here. That's a decent guess as well.
Hugh Freeze?
Frank Beamer.
Oh,
1-21 all time against AP top 5 teams. Safe to say he rated some pretty good Miami and Florida State teams for a
Yeah, it
while.
makes sense. Yeah.
Did he?
So, yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, elite.
Just a couple.
Few?
Just a couple there that he had to go up against. I would not have guessed that he would be the name on that list. That would not be it for me. All right, before we go to break and get to the final segment of the show, you can't call the ACC title game as far as a winner, GMAC, because you're going to be on the call for that one, 7 p.m. ABC tomorrow night. I know everyone's going to be dialed into that one. I don't think Rhett and SMU get slowed down. I think the things that you heard Rhett say on our show and a couple of other shows this week shows me his confidence. I talked to Ian Fitzsimmons yesterday. He's doing radio for the game. He was at practice, said it was crisp, clean, said he feels like they're ready to go. I think the offense is going to be a little bit too much. And defensively, I think they can just neutralize Clemson. I do kind of like the under in this game at 55.5.
Wow.
39 degrees at kick. So I think being a little bit of a chilly day maybe slows some things down. But I think SMU, I think they win this game. They get to 12-1, ACC champions, and are in the college football playoff. Greg can't call it. So Damien, ACC champions for you.
I'm going SMU.
Okay, John?
I think Clemson makes a fun, close game of it, but in the end, like Greg said, with Oregon pulling away late, SMU does that.
Okay. Is there one thing you're looking at, Greg, that you feel like is maybe the most important thing or most important things that will decide this game?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, can SMU win at the line of scrimmage against this Clemson defensive front? Now, Clemson's defensive front is not great. I think Rhett acknowledges that they're a little undersized, and they will They have not seen a team that is going to be this physical. They haven't. And they're going to have to get by with some pretty miraculous plays. I mean, Kevin Jennings is going to have to make some crazy good plays. But I think it's a tricky matchup for both teams. What Clemson does well is what I think SMU might struggle with. And what SMU does well is what I think Clemson struggles with. Like gashing, quick, athletic, big plays created, things like that. So I think it's a really unique matchup. And I'm God's honest truth. Like, I really don't know which direction it's going to go. I think it's a complete toss-up. And that's not usually how I feel going into the game. I usually have a pretty good sense. This one, I have no clue.
All right, last one before we get to break. Big 12 title game. We've talked about it throughout the course of this week. Didn't spend a ton of time on it today. We know from a receiving perspective, Arizona State going to be hampered a little bit. But I think Arizona State runs the ball well enough to be able to lock this thing up. I think they get the win. I'm going Arizona State in the Big 12 title game tomorrow, 11 a.m. on ABC from AT&T Stadium. GMAC, which direction you going?
I'm going Arizona State. I kind of wanted to go Iowa State, but Iowa State's inconsistencies stopping the run just have me a little troubled. They're just not very good. Now, I will admit, part of me is concerned about the absence of Jordan Tyson and knowing that there was that guy that was going to have to keep you honest on the outside. That was something that I thought would make it advantageous towards Arizona State. But with him being out, it is of concern. But I don't know, man. It's hard for me to get fired up about Iowa State stopping the run. It just is.
I'm with you. All right, Damian?
Yep, Arizona State.
John?
0 doubt Arizona State.
Everybody on Arizona State for this one. Okay. I mean,
can I switch now?
Go for it.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll stick with it.
All right, you're sticking with it. Okay.
If Saber's on it, I like it. Damian had me second-guessing things for a moment.
All right. Well, never second-guess what you're going to use for your marinade. Dale's Seasoning. If you're headed to a tailgate, this marinade's your MVP. Just 30 minutes with Dale's and your meats and veggies transformed from bland to bold, whether it's ribs, burgers, even those veggies you're grilling up. Dale's versatility is a game changer. Make every bite count and score big with Dale's Seasoning. All right, we'll be back for our Super Sofa Game of the Week and Bad Box Scores of the Day next. 9:51 Friday, December 6th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Super Sofa Game of the Week is the one game that you would watch if that's all you had. You could only watch one the entire weekend. Which one would you take? There are multiple for different reasons for me, but I'm going to roll right into it and go a little bit of a different direction for a different reason. I'm not going to give you SEC because I'll be on that one, and I think that would be the obvious choice for all of us. But opposite that, oh, here we go. Atrix.
Oh, Atrox.
Pentatonics.
We got an evil Grinch. We've got a zombie Santa. Just what I need for the holidays. It's great. Yay. I'm going to go Greg's game, Clemson SMU, because I feel like this.
You're a good friend.
That too. This does more for who's in, who's out, who's where in the college football playoff, maybe than any other game this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just interested to see if SMU were to lose, how do they look, and what does that do? Obviously, I think we all know if Clemson loses,
Dunzo.
they're out. But if Clemson wins, how good did they look, and maybe what does that mean as to actually where they come in ranked in the college football playoff 12-team seedings? So for me, that would be my Super Sofa Game of the Week, brought to you by TD's Fine Furniture.
I like it. I do think that ACC Championship's interesting. I'm going to go a slightly different direction. I'm really intrigued by tonight's game in the Mountain West. I really want to go somewhere. I almost went Jack State, but if Tyler Huff can't go, that's going to make things a little less interesting. So I'm going to go Mountain West. I think I'm really curious because this could be a pretty seismic shift as well, like the ACC, where in the event when Boise now loses and the Big 12 game becomes for a first-round bye, whereas if Boise wins, they lock down the first-round bye potentially, even though they probably shouldn't. There's just a lot of trickle-down that could happen with that game as well. So I'll go Mountain West Championship.
I'm going the SEC Championship, Georgia versus Texas. They're on the ABC, the ESPN network family. It's crazy to say that we're watching the SEC Championship on ABC, 3 o'clock.
No, you're going to watch it on ESPN. You're going to watch the megacast on ESPN.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the megacast on ESPN, of course. Yes. That's my TD's Fine Furniture.
Harry Douglas, Marty, McGee, me. That's what you guys are all.
I'm watching the secondary megacast on the Ocho.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're, where I don't even know who's on it, but I'm sure we have a few megacasts, don't we? Feinbaum Film Room?
Not that I know of. But, do have a Skycam cast, I think, on the SEC network.
Watch the tape.
Now, all right, you got my attention. Big Skycam guy.
Okay, there it is.
For me, I'll take the Big 12 championship game because it's one of the few that for sure win in loser definitely, you going home.
Yeah.
And so 11 o'clock, ABC, Iowa State, Arizona State, Dr. Pepper, Big 12 championship. That is my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa Game of the weekend, and it's a great time to get your Super Sofa during TD's year-end clearance sale. Outfit the bedroom and the dining room. They have recliners, sofas, even the Flex Steel Home Store on sale. Plus, pay no interest till 2026 with the year-end clearance sale at TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton.
All right, there you go. Let's roll right over into our bad box scores of the day. I'm going to have to make this quick. So I'm going to go right into it. Hostos Community College. This is girls JUCO basketball.
They're the Hawks.
Hawks.
Hoss.
HOST. Hostos Community College. They're actually the Blue Dragons.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
All right, ladies.
They just snuck past the Borough of Manhattan Community College last night.
They're the Wildcats.
Joe Burrow.
They are not the Wildcats, and they are also not the Joe Burrows. John?
No, they are the Windbreakers.
Panthers. They lost 100-23.
Ugh.
Also in women's JUCO basketball last night, the Monroe University.
They're the Monarchs.
The Regals.
They're not. They are
the offensive linemen.
They are the Express. They just snuck past last night the Bronx Community College.
The Joeys.
The Bay Bears.
The Yankees.
Broncos.
Oh, okay. That
113-39.
That's too close. Ooh. That's too much.
It's actually not that bad.
Ooh.
Here are a couple of your scores from the Broncos this year. 117-27, 99-40, 51-45, by the way, in a nobody makes anything game.
Okay.
But last night it was a little bit rough for the Broncos as they shot 10 of 44. They did shoot 11 threes.
How many did they make?
Not that bad.
2.
Okay.
Ugh.
They were out rebounded 66-31.
66 rebounds.
What's the what? I don't understand the problem.
No effort. That's the problem.
Getting after it.
Well, that's
I
yeah.
can
Wanted that enough.
They did have 9 offensive rebounds. Bronx did last night on 39 points, shooting 10 of 44. Hey, Monroe was only 46 of 109.